It's just been time after time, player after player, where they've just done these types of things or just hold on too long and not break up. Like, it's okay to break up. Like, Trey Hendrickson and them, I feel like, need to break up. Like, what are we doing at this point?
And they're trying to sign Trey Hendrickson and, obviously, Jamar Chase to long-time deals here. But they're like, oh, we'll put the second franchise tag on you,
which is
T. Higgins.
Again, here's my random opinion and thoughts about Cincinnati. They've never had to deal with being this good. Or quarterback that's good. Andy Dalton was solid. I loved Andy.
But not Joe Burrow level.
No, he wasn't Joe Burrow level because now they got real, true expectations. I feel like with Marvin Lewis and Andy Dalton, and they had a real good squad. They had Pro Bowlers. They checked every box. They've never been expected to be this good.
Yep.
And sustaining that is hard to do in the NFL. I think I've said this before, the NFL is more set up for you to fail than for you to be successful because if more teams fail than be successful, then it makes it more competitive. It put more eyes on it. Being this good is hard. Like that's why it's hard finding a franchise quarterback. It's hard why the Titans got to make hard decisions this offseason. It's hard looking at teams like Cleveland that choose a spin for a quarterback and it still doesn't work out. And the same can be said about the Jets. I mean, there's so many different teams that are trying to figure this thing out. Arizona, to be quite honest with you, like they can be okay, but like there's a roof over top of Arizona at this point, right? Is that how you guys feel? Do you feel like Kyler can take them to a Super Bowl?
No, I've never been a big believer in Kyler Murray.
Really?
I just think I don't know. I just feel like if he was able to take it to the next level or the level they should be at this point, it would have been at least a team that was competitive in the playoffs. And I just don't feel like he's been able to take it to that level because of an injury or just with not being able to get to the playoffs. I just don't. I'm not a believer 100% in Kyler Murray that he's the answer in Arizona. But I've never been a Kyler Murray guy, so that's might be just bias on my part.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
615-737-1045 is stream the show live on 1045 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. You heard the report yesterday as well, last night from NFL Network, that Sam Darnold will not be franchise tagged. Minnesota still looking to potentially do a deal with him moving forward. But he will be available unless something gets done by 3 o'clock today for other teams, most likely. Do you feel like at this point, gut feeling, guys, the Titans will be in on Sam Darnold?
Do I feel like they'll be in on him? My quick answer is no. Just no. I feel like with any of these franchise quarterbacks that you have to pay like big starter money, it's not truly buying into what you really need to be doing. It's putting another band. Now, this time it'd be putting a gauze over it. If you put Sam Darnold here in Nashville, just on the backs of there's a lot of money to spend for a roster that needs a whole lot of attention for a quarterback that's expected to go into a franchise and help it win immediately. Mm-hmm. The Titans aren't set up, in my opinion, for a quarterback of that ilk just yet. And that's big-time money, big-time expectation, and the idea that a roster is set for him. The roster isn't set for a guy like him, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I'm half in, half out on if the Titans are serious, because I do think if you're the Titans at this point where we don't know exactly what direction they're going, they need to be in on everything in terms of an option. However, I think that option in particular, just because of Ramon, you mentioned the price. The biggest thing for me, too, is you're connecting to Sam Darnold, I think, more longer term than you would be one of these other maybe one-year bridge quarterbacks, because they've preached and preached and preached that we want to start from the foundation and build in the draft. And if they're really serious about their messaging on that, I believe the quarterback is part of that equation on building the foundation. And that's why I think going and getting a guy like Sam Darnold, signing him to a few-year deal, paying a little bit more money, I just don't feel like that follows their narrative. But again, I think they should keep all options open because you never know what's going to present itself in the next several weeks.
Yeah, I don't think they'd be doing their jobs if they didn't at least look at it as a QB-needy team. Right. Honestly.
Gotcha.
Right.
I think he would be similar to the move that Mike Borgonzi made in getting Alex Smith, when they had the number 1 overall pick and decided to take Eric Fisher because they didn't feel like there was a player worthy of the number 1 overall pick at the quarterback position in 2013.
Understood. I just view that like if it's certain, I guess, tiers of quarterbacks that's going into this free agency, the Titans aren't cute enough just yet. Like, legitimately. Like, you're not ready to date him yet. That's the way I look at that one. You know what I'm saying? It's just
You might
like
speed date, but not permanently
like you're a
date.
freshman like dating a sophomore, junior. Okay, all right, cool. Like going any higher than that, no, sir. You have a curfew still. You can't drive and leave
You're
the
still
house.
going to the freshman dance. You're not ready for the junior prom.
Exactly. Like,
Right,
those seniors come to see you play a JV game? Absolutely not. We're not doing. I just don't think they're there yet. But you're right. You're supposed to shake every tree as it pertains to it. I'm gonna be honest with you. There's a little BTS going on too. There's some battered Titan syndrome going on with the idea that you're not supposed to have nice things.
Absolutely.
And because people think that Sam Darnold is Ryan Tannehill, and people think that's a bad thing.
I know.
It's crazy to me. I actually saw that in the F&M Bank chat yesterday. Somebody said, if we get Darnold, we're just getting another Tannehill. Great. That's great with me. Are you kidding? He took you to an AFC championship game and threw for 3,700 yards in 2020 and 2021. If you guaranteed me Ryan Tannehill production from Sam Darnold, I would take it to the bank today and say, please give me that. The 2020 season, if people understand that Ryan Tannehill had 3,800 yards, 33 touchdowns, 7 picks, and a quarterback rating of 106.5.
Can we slow clap for Ryan Tannehill?
I'm serious.
Just a little bit.
I mean,
I'm being dead serious.
If you signed me up for that, and that was when he was 32 years old. Sam Darnold's 27.
Yeah. I think the Ryan Tannehill thing is that they have been scorned by him in a way.
I get it. I'm a Titans fan. I understand.
And especially just because of the one playoff game, which is not entirely fair because
technically,
totally
Sam
body of
Darnold
work-
had the same thing.
Yep.
Technically.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And so you have to be careful, too, with the Sam Darnold thing and assuming that he's going to have that level of production in a place where there's a lot less weapons. I don't think the coaching is necessarily yet at that level. So that's the other thing you have to consider.
Look, if the succession plan had worked, we would view Ryan Tannehill a lot differently.
For sure.
The succession plan after him with Malik Willis and Will Levis was so wretched for this franchise that it makes us view him so much differently because it was so bad at the end. Like, he couldn't move, he got hurt again, goes to London, isn't very good, and then you don't really want to bring him back at that point because you're 2-4, and you got another guy that is shinier and newer and more fun, and Will Levis. Like, the getting Ryan Tannehill was not the problem. It was how bad the Titans tried to replace him that was really the bigger issue.
Failed plan.
So if you replace Sam Darnold with a younger quarterback when Sam starts to fall a little bit, then thank you for your service. We appreciate your 3,800 yards, and we'll see you on the other side.
We having almost
Give you a tribute video when you come back.
Ryan Tannehill Appreciation Day.
Well, and he's kind of quietly
If
gone
we
off
want
into the
listeners,
sea. He hasn't even officially retired
It's
yet.
interesting how
he
two
don't.
of the biggest figures in Titans history over the last 10 years, like, never officially retired between him and Lawan. They just kind of stopped playing football one day.
Announce it.
No,
He didn't either.
one day he just got really skinny.
Well, he'll
Respectfully.
Right.
He's already got his severance check. That's for sure.
There you
The
go.
way the
Oh,
league
yeah.
year
He's
works.
doing fine.
615-737-1045 is our number. NFL headlines from yesterday afternoon as the franchise tag deadline day decisions started to come out around the NFL. Plus, Cameron Wolf of NFL Network with some rumblings that I think mean one of two things. Because he says the Tennessee Titans love Cam Ward. What does that mean? We'll talk about it next. Hey, it's Will Bullock. Are you looking to keep your home in great shape year-round? Well, hey, of course you are. And you got to sign up for a Lee Company home maintenance plan for just $12 a month. Plan members receive 4 service visits a year from the Lee Company team of experts. You get a heating system tune-up, an air conditioning tune-up, an electrical inspection, and a detailed plumbing inspection as well. That's 4 annual visits for just $12 a month. And for the very best in-home service, you got to call Lee Company at 615-567-1000. Do it today or visit them online at leecompany.com. Just search home maintenance plan to join their membership. With those 4 annual visits, $12 a month, you stay ahead of Mother Nature with that heating system tune-up, AC tune-up, an electrical inspection, and a detailed plumbing inspection as well. All for the folks with over 80 years of experience at Lee Company. Give them a call, 615-567-1000 today, or visit them online at leecompany.com. That's Lee Company, all you need. Tuesday morning on RKW, brewed by Scooters Coffee on 104.5 The Zone. Amazing people, amazing drinks, amazingly fast. Coming up this morning, our guests today, VolQuest Dawson Price, of course, at 8:20, as he is every Tuesday. And SEC Network's Richard Hendrix. He will join us talking some SEC hoops and college basketball at 9:20 this morning. Your thoughts at 615-737-1045. Cameron Wolf of NFL Network has given insight into the Titans meeting with Cam Ward. I think here it is.
Put it on YouTube stream. Make sure the audio's playing there. I guess, well, anyway, fine.
So there is NFL Media's Cameron Wolf yesterday on NFL Network. If you're watching on the YouTube stream or on the 104.5 The Zone TV stream, essentially he said they met with Cam Ward. They really liked him. They are still surveying their options. What stands out to you guys from that?
How quick this process got to go for the Titans on this one. And if they are sticking and picking in one, it has to be Cam Ward because they got quarterback needs as it pertains to the projection or I guess the trajectory of this team moving forward. And again, I don't know if this is flirting. I don't know if this is gamesmanship of draft and trying to get more assets by saying, hey, Giants, we got your man right here hostage in the corner with handcuffs on. What are you willing to give up for him at this point right here? I want to believe him. And I guess if they have no traction whatsoever, it makes no sense for them not to take Cam Ward at this point.
I don't know what to believe. And it's because I'll just say this. Early on before the whole draft process, when the whole GM thing was happening and they were trying to find their GM and they hired their GM, the word was, it's like, how do we, if we don't want one of these quarterbacks, the big question is, how do we sell it like we want it? And those are kind of things that you hear from upper management in any situation like this is it's coming up with a way to sell it. And so I still in the back of my mind, as much as I would like Cam Ward to come here with the number 1 overall pick, I still feel like the Titans might not feel they're ready yet to surround him with enough pieces. Maybe the quarterback development thing is still something that's in the back of Mike Borgonzi's mind with Brian Callahan, still not having done it yet here, that they're trying to maybe sell this and it will get even more of a sell situation once he visits this weekend, because I believe he's coming in on Friday. So in the back of my mind, as much as I want it to be true, I'm like, I have a little beeper going off saying, be cautious, because they do have to still try to sell that they want one of these quarterbacks at number 1. But I do think they're going to give a fair chance to both of them this next week or so to see if it's really a fit. And I've said that time and time again. I think they really have to feel 100% this is the right move getting one of them. And if it's not, they're going to continue to try to sell like they are going to come here.
Let's get aggressive with it then. So here's the thing. So if the last couple of years, Carolina and Chicago both sold out for their quarterbacks, is there anything wrong with the Titans selling out for their quarterback?
I don't think so. I think, and that's what's hard to figure out what they're really doing, right? Because we have heard that these two quarterbacks, no matter what we say, we've heard that these two quarterbacks might not be the best graded quarterbacks in classes in the past, right? Like even if you compared all of these. But in this one,
this is what you have to judge from.
And that's why I'm not happy with how they've been really put out there. Like they're not good enough to be taken at number one overall. I think I'm actually mad about that in a way. That
really?
Yeah, I just feel like if you feel like that's your quarterback and you do your due diligence of making sure it's a fit for you, then I don't really give a crap what the grade was compared to the guys last year. As long as you feel like you're sold on that quarterback. But that's what's so hard to see with this team right now. They're all new. Like the upper management is new. Brian Callahan, we just don't know how much say he has. So it's hard to grasp what's going through their mind. But I feel like if they're honest about it and they want to sell out saying we'll take a quarterback, by all means, they should.
Does it make you nervous to take him because of what the media is saying, or are you a believer in what, let's say Cam Ward? You're a believer in Cam Ward
I'm
and you
a
would take
believer,
him.
yeah.
You would take him.
If you were Mike Borgonzi, that's who you're taking.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
And again, this is my personal opinion. I've seen the play. I'm convinced, and I could be dead wrong down the road, and I'll be the first to admit that I was wrong, right? But I feel like he can be the dude moving forward. It might not be perfect the first year. I think you're still going to need somebody in here to maybe even bridge a few games to start or just to kind of ease your way in. But at the same time, I also would be probably fine with just sticking him out there.
Yeah, it's certainly in the Titans' best interest to put out there that they like Cam Ward and that they were impressed by him. I mean, if they want legitimate options to trade back, it's not in their best interest to not love the quarterbacks. Because if the Giants think that the Titans just want Abdul Carter and can get him at 3, then, yeah, maybe the 2 third-round picks price is all they're going to offer.
Yeah.
Like, they have to believe the Titans would be fine with sticking and picking at 1 and taking Cam Ward.
Yeah, they do. They have to. And that's the thing about it, too, is everybody know the Titans are anemic right now. Like they're underweight. They're malnourished as it pertains to their roster. They're in a worse situation than a team that's worse than them, and that's the New England Patriots. The Patriots got a lot of money and they got a lot to fill in with. It's just like the Titans got half of that money and just as many pieces to fill in minus the quarterback. At least they in New England have the quarterback. That's the issue that you have is you still do need a quarterback, and you've said you're going to be very strategic in how you spend the free agency. And it just doesn't add up to the fact that you have a quarterback that's QB1 in this class, far and above everybody else, it seems like, and you're going to pass on him, like John Stockton. Shout out to Kendrick. I know I had to. It's early. Got to wake the people up, man.
He is
let's go.
Assist king.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go to Matt in Shelbyville, 615-737-1045. Good morning, Matt.
Hey, good morning. Just real quick, you got a new stadium. And remember, this is a business. You guys well know. And you have a new stadium, and you know you can't put this product in the stadium because this thing will be empty every Sunday because those tickets are going to be expensive. So if you do not, the only thing the Titans can do if they're going to trade back is probably go to 3 because you know the first guy is going to take the quarterback, and I think the second team is going to take Travis Hunter, and then you can get your quarterback, and then you can get draft capital. Mm-hmm. But you guys like Cam Ward, it sounds like. But I think if you guys watch the tape of Shador, this man is not afraid to be great. And even though you're not great at that time, you're going to see this man just rise almost to I'm not going to predict because he might get hurt. It might not happen. But this guy has talent, like hidden talent. And then you turn around and then you get his daddy the coach. Oh, man, you might make all your money back in about 5 years just in the marketing alone.
Thank you, Matt. I'm interested in everything but the last point. I'm not interested in Deion Sanders as an NFL head coach here. I'm good.
And I think both of them have the ability to be really good quarterbacks in this league. I'm more on Cam Ward, but that doesn't mean I'd be unhappy if they felt like Shedeur Sanders was the best pick. I want what this organization feels is the best pick for their situation. I don't give a damn what anybody else thinks. I'm going to have my own opinion. You're going to have yours. You're going to have yours, right? Fans are going to have theirs. But it's really, honestly, only about what the Titans feel if they're going to do a quarterback for this situation, what best fits them. So if it's Shedeur Sanders, so be it. If it's Cam Ward, so be it. I'm okay with both.
To me, the optics are going to matter a little bit, though, as far as the fans. And here's the thing. Sometimes fans don't know any better. That's what you're also getting yourself into is we don't either. And sometimes the front office just gets it wrong, too. With this one, you feel like the last 3 years you've had major turnover. There has to be a stable piece put into this franchise, into this fan base that makes you want to have that H word again. Mm-hmm. Hope, belief. There's a lot, I think, that you've lost with this fan base as it pertains to doing business the right way. And that's what sucks about this situation is, every quarterback that's coming out's got issues. But so does Abdul Carter at some point.
Sure.
What are you going to do with Travis?
Right.
So do what you feel is right for this team if it is a quarterback or non-quarterback at this point.
And you know what's interesting, guys, is you made a good point. It's this first time for a lot of this new staff making the pick. And you don't go in just with the 21st pick. You go in with the number 1 overall pick as a new, upper management staff. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of pressure on you to get it right as well. So, but like you were saying, you could have the safe pick and it could be okay, but you could also roll the dice on a quarterback and it could hit.
Safe pick to me is more, well, here's the thing. Safe pick. All of them can be busts. I thought for sure Robert Gallery was going to be a Hall of Fame lineman, and he wasn't one. I thought Trey Lance was going to turn into something. I thought a safe pick was Zach Wilson in a sense, right?
And that's why their grades have to matter.
Yeah.
Their grade independent of how they compare to other guys in their class, the number grade or the color grade has to matter. Because if the player is not worthy of the number 1 overall pick, you can't take him.
Because
so are you saying their grades don't make them worthy this year of the number 1 overall pick?
I'm saying that if they are an 89, like Michael Penix was, you don't take them with the number 1 overall pick. Their grades relative to the past classes and to the standards of what they believe a quarterback needs to be successful matters. And just because they have the number 1 pick and need a quarterback doesn't mean you just automatically take the quarterback. If you don't think that's a good quarterback, you don't take him.
Right. And I don't think they're by any means going to treat it like that. I'm sure they'll take the grades into account. But I just think them meeting with them this week in particular and going into next week with Shedeur, I just think it's going to be maybe even the deciding factor with these.
Well, it has to. Because free agency opens up. Sure. Tampering opens up next week. That's the other part is tampering starts. So if they want a Sam Darnold or
but it's
anybody else.
What else could you see, I guess? I mean,
as far as the tape?
Yeah, what else could you get out of a top 30 visit? And we know how unique they are because it's all about connection too, right?
Put them on the whiteboard.
Yeah, put them on. And I think
understanding
both of them can
the processing.
Right.
Well, I don't know. I mean, we're not in the meeting rooms. I genuinely have no clue. And plus, does the personality work? Does the can Brian Callahan work with these guys? I don't see any major personality red flags, but I do think it can push you over the top or push you back onto the cliff. Bo Nix very famously really got along with Sean Payton last year and sold the Denver Broncos on him. That's a very specific kind of offense. There's long play calls in a Sean Payton system. All right, Bo, I'm going to give you 4 sentences. Read this back to me and tell me on the whiteboard exactly what I just told you. And his ability to do it and process that was enough reason for Sean Payton to be like, yep, that's my guy.
And he wasn't highly graded. Was he?
Bo had rooms.
I'm looking right here. I'm just looking at
it. He had conversation of being a first rounder.
He did, yeah. I mean, it kind of started maybe around this time of year as maybe a second or third round guy.
He played a lot of ball too, obviously. I mean, he's played a lot of football in his career.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of guys now. There are good prospects that have played a lot. Then there's Dylan Gabriel and Will Howard and guys like that who played a lot of football.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the phones. Wesley up next on the phones this morning. Hey, Wesley.
Hey, guys. So if if Las Vegas can't get Rodgers or Stafford, is there a possibility of them trying to jump up from 6-1?
I do, yeah.
And if we do drop back to 6, I just say we sign Jameis Winston just because he's a good character, because we're going to suck anyways. And how true do y'all think the James Pierce things I read about yesterday, how true do you think those are?
Thank you, Wesley. We'll talk about it. Jameis Winston, first of all, I would not bring here to be a starting quarterback. I'd bring him here to be a backup to help be a good morale guy if you drafted one of these two guys. But I would not bring him here to be a bridge quarterback, first and foremost.
No, that's not going to happen. Like, I just don't see that being a situation at all.
No,
but it would be a great locker room guy, which, by the way, you still do need some sort of a presence on that side.
On the James Pierce thing, a lot of writing about there. I saw one person say he could fall to day 3 of the draft. I think there's a lot of hyperbole out there that is not totally accurate about James Pierce right now.
It is. The way I've heard his situation is like, he's edgy at times, but not the worst teammate as it pertains to what you want him to be again. And here's what I would tell you guys, too, about James Pierce, anybody else. Jalen Carter had a very interesting pre-draft. Laramie Tunsil had a very interesting pre-draft. Because a lot of players that had red flags as it pertains to their career. T'Vondre Sweat had an issue.
According to a lot of people.
According to a lot of people. In this league, we're talking about talent right now. James has it. If somebody's going to get him at some capacity, and that 4.4 that he ran, his size, 6'5", 245, somebody's going to want to take it earlier than expected. This is my contingency on that one. I've seen a lot of checker pass dudes still go top 10 or first round.
I mean, look at the Georgia guys. There's a lot of Georgia guys that, they're like, oh, red flag, red flag. They've been taken, and honestly, a lot of them have produced, minus Isaiah Wilson.
Yeah, I think the issue is a lot of draft people don't watch college football. And I think a lot of people will watch his snap count and watch the way he was rotated in and out and think, oh, they're trying to hold him out because they don't like him. No, that's just the way Rodney Garner kind of does things. Like, that's just how Tennessee football wants to rotate defensive linemen. Like, they wanted to play 10 to 12 guys, and I don't think James Pierce was any different because he had quote-unquote character concerns. I just think that's the way that Tennessee defensively wants to be and wants to live. So if I'm wrong on that, I mean, let me know. But that's the vibe I get, is that people are putting one thing and another thing together and making something that actually doesn't exist, and saying, "Oh, well, they're rotating him out and so much because they don't trust him and they don't like him." I don't think that's accurate.
Is any of this coming out of like the interviews by chance? Just with the narrative?
I'm sure he got drilled the entire time,
and I'm sure teams like Philadelphia want it out there that way they drop to him. I mean, I'm serious.
No, I mean, not a bad.
Contending teams are absolutely doing that, and the Texans, I mean, I 100% believe, put out a fake S2 cognition test for C.J. Stroud because they wanted him.
I agree.
Happens all the time. Like, it's the dirty part of this business at this point. 615-737-1045 is our number. More of your thoughts on the Titans, Cam Ward, and the quarterback position. We'll get to Jarvis and Paul when we come back and hit more NFL headlines after this.
Did you know that up to 50% of the air you breathe in your home comes from your crawl space? Have you ever looked in your crawl space? So I get it. Most of us don't even want to know what's in there, but moisture in your crawl space can create unhealthy issues that can make their way into the air you breathe every day in your home. It's Ramon Foster, and this is where United Structural Systems can help you out. US has been keeping homes dry and stable in Middle Tennessee since 1994, so you know they aren't going anywhere. Help control moisture and musty smells with mold treatment and crawl space encapsulation that comes with the USS guarantee. That's That's right. Encapsulation helps reduce high humidity in your crawl space, also helps deter mold and mildew, and protects your crawl space from pests and wood rot. So turn your crawl space into a healthy space. Reach out to the company I trust, man, for foundation repair and waterproofing needs at all times, man. You can go to their website at ussTN.com. That's ussTN.com, or call them at 615-488-7855. United Structural Systems.
RKW wrapping up hour one, brewed by Scooters Coffee on 104.5 The Zone. Visit your local Scooters locations in Brentwood, Goodlettsville, Mount Juliet, Smyrna, and White House. 615-737-1045, talking about the Titans and their love of Cam Ward, according to NFL Network's Cameron Wolf yesterday. Your thoughts right now on the phones. Well, we go next to Paul. What's up, Paul?
Yeah, I got a question.
Okay.
The first-round picks of this class for quarterbacks, we're going to draft the best of the worst class in a long time. Ryan Leaf, Achilles Smith, all those guys were busts. I don't know. We need a need at it. We can get yours in the third round. You don't need to get a first-round pick this year out of a crappy draft choice class. That's all I got.
Thank you, Paul. I'm not interested in Quinn Ewers personally.
Nope.
You just went with the secondary option, half in, half out kind of quarterback, and it got you back here to square one because it was Will Levis.
They did it the year before too, and Malik Willis. Let's not forget about that.
And that was also a crappy quarterback class.
Yeah, I'm not in on that. And when it's all said and done, man, it's 50-50 in all these quarterbacks. I don't care if they have high grades, low grades. It is such a situation with quarterbacks that they work or they don't. Or they work later down the line, like you're seeing in Sam Darnold or Geno Smith. So
I'd say some guys it's like 70-30.
Yeah.
Other guys it's like 40-60.
As far as
And some guys it's
probability.
50-50 on if they're going to work. Yeah.
Yeah. I look at this situation as just like you need one. I'd much rather slow walk this thing, to be completely honest with you. I'm like, I believe in what Cam can do. I told you guys from the get-go, I really like Shador too. Mm-hmm. But you got to get this right. If you can move back to take him at 3, either one of them, you probably feel a little bit better about it.
Sure, because you get those picks.
You're going to need one.
Mm-hmm.
Jarvis is in South Carolina up next, 615-737-1045. What's up, Jarvis?
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good morning, Jarvis.
Hey, I don't want no Sam Darnold if you say he's like Tannehill. The way he gonna do is build our hopes up and get in the playoff and shit on us again.
Oh, all right. Got to keep the language clean.
We were having a nice time.
Dang it, Jarvis.
Come on.
I thought he was going to say, I don't want no scrub.
No,
I
Jarvis
saw that was
Who's that
the
by?
TLC.
Oh.
Thought it that direction he was going in, but he just said, I don't want Sam Darnold.
Jarvis.
Got to let you go after the...
He didn't mean to. At
After the
least
word.
he understood
It's okay.
he did not say a good word.
It happens.
I'm not even going to.
It's not personal.
It ain't personal at all. We appreciate the call, but you got to keep it clean, Jarvis. These quarterbacks, one, you need one. This is also, whether they get this right or wrong too, like you still got to look what happened beforehand. Whether it's not keeping Tannehill long enough or not having an offense for him or trying to move on from him too fast. And then the overselling of Will Levis at that point too. I get it. He had to have this. I look at a little bit of Will Levis's last year. In 2024, his second year as a full-time starter, is into over-believing in him too much. Like the belief that he was going to save the franchise and take you to another level, I think was a little bit premature. It showed a little bit of inexperience also with Coach Callahan in a sense. Like, don't listen to him. You make him do what you want to do with these points. And then when you try to reel it back in, it wasn't good enough in those points right there. So when it comes down to these guys having talent or not having talent, right, being worthy of the number 1 overall pick or not, at the end of the day, we're putting a lot on these players, and it should be. But a good bit of this does have to result to how Coach Callahan and his staff coach whoever the quarterback is going to be up to. Are they good enough to actually craft an offense, surround them with weapons to make this team good? Because that's what Washington is doing right now. Houston did the exact same thing, too, with C.J. Stroud as of late. Cincinnati's trying to do it with Joe Burrow. Tom Brady did it. Like, that's the other side of it, too. You are as good as your weapons. So do you go get the main weapon right now and treat it just like New England is with Drake May and saying, we got our guy at least, we'll sell out.
And you take the risk of breaking that person.
Breaking them.
Because they are getting hit so much and have no one to throw to. And you ruin their confidence by putting them in a no-win situation.
But I will say on that point with having Drake May last year, look, they had nothing really surrounding Drake May. I mean, that is not
true.
a good team, guys. And Drake May actually got better.
But he was graded as a much better quarterback prospect than these guys. Like if you were maybe picking Drake May at this point, okay, maybe we're having a different discussion. But that's where, again, it comes back to the evaluation of what was Drake May's number or what was his color in terms of the Titans model. So that's the answer we don't have at this point.
We don't have that at this point. And look, whether they can't do this job and act like, okay, that there's that their jobs depend upon it that much. If this is what's best for the team in this era, then you got to go do it.
It's a risk no matter what.
I just don't believe in overspending for a free agent quarterback. It's my biggest contingency. You give me a cheaper guy, I don't care if it's Jacoby Brissett or I don't care if it's one of these rookies. But you can't just dive into the deep end this time around and act like it's going to be okay. Because as much as I hate talking about, well, the team got to be right before the stadium. No, it don't. You take your time and get this thing correct to me. It has to be somewhat competitive moving forward.
Right.
But you don't have to be a Super Bowl contender going into the new stadium.
Right.
This is for sustainability to me.
I think also the free agency quarterback situation is really interesting this year because there are a lot of teams who kind of need a quarterback in some situation or not. I mean, they're going to need, like we were talking about, all these teams right now that could go sign in free agency, and you're playing like a puzzle almost if you're the Titans because these quarterbacks also in free agency want to have to come here too. And so it is very hard. It's not just hey, this is the plan. Like there's just so much that goes into it. It makes it more complicated and it muddies the water.
Commenter on YouTube says Drake May a better prospect than Sanders or Ward. Man, cut it out. ESPN's Matt Miller has Drake May as the 5th best quarterback prospect of all quarterback prospects since the 2020 draft. Drake May was a fantastic prospect coming out of North Carolina.
He didn't get as much pub, I think, last year because of the other quarterbacks.
He was the third one
in the draft, especially because Caleb Williams kind of dominated that. But I will say this, and I didn't watch a lot of Drake May coming out of college, but I still feel like Cam Ward can be like a quarterback like that. I don't think that he's way above Cam Ward.
I don't know. He's pretty dang good at UNC. 615-737-1045. We'll get to Jim on the other side. We're going to switch gears a little bit because there is some major developing news today in college sports. A major conference's days might be numbered. And we'll talk about that next.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
7:01 for the 104.5 The Zone Studios. Good morning. I'm Will Bowling. Today is the deadline for teams to apply the franchise tag in the NFL. And last night, NFL Network's Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero report that the Vikings are not expected to franchise tag quarterback Sam Darnold by today's deadline. The report says all parties are working through options to potentially keep him in Minnesota. The franchise tag for quarterbacks is $40.242 million for the non-exclusive tender. Meanwhile, the Bengals, they are franchise tagging T. Higgins as they continue to work toward a long-term deal as well. If Higgins signs the tag, the Oak Ridge, Tennessee native, if he ends up playing on it, would make a guaranteed $26.2 million for 2025. Tonight on the ice, the Nashville Predators finish a 3-game Northeast road swing with a matchup with the Boston Bruins. The Preds have lost the first 2 games of the trip, allowing 11 total goals in the last 2 games to the Islanders and Rangers. And on the hardwood of the SEC tonight, Arkansas visits Vanderbilt at Memorial Gym. ESPN.com gave the Commodores a 90% chance to make the NCAA tournament yesterday. Meanwhile, Arkansas is given a 33% chance after a Saturday loss to South Carolina, where they only mustered 14 first-half points against the Gamecocks. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone. RKW is brewed by Scooters Coffee on 104.5 The Zone as we roll into hour number 2. Visit your local Middle Tennessee Scooters locations in Brentwood, Goodlettsville, Mount Juliet, Smyrna, and White House. Scooters, amazing people, amazing drinks, amazingly fast. 615-737-1045. The number. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, and Will Bowling with you. Justin Hawkins is our producer. We stream the show live on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Guys, it might be the end of the ACC.
Tell us, Will.
I, for one, am shocked.
Surprise.
So, Andy Staples of On 3 with the report yesterday that today could be a very big day for the conference, saying Clemson and Florida State are moving to settle their lawsuits against the ACC, and the ACC is moving to settle its dueling lawsuit. They countersued. Snip, snap, against the schools today. So when the settlement is done, guys, there will be a dollar figure. There will be a number that an ACC school can pay to no longer be a member of the ACC and to no longer have its media rights controlled by the ACC. So essentially, that number is not crazy, is the point. A source tells On 3 a school could pay about $200 million as this settlement happens to leave the ACC once the settlement goes through today. That figure falls to well below $100 million should a school wish to exit the league after the 2029-2030 school year. Very big day in the Atlantic Coast Conference today, guys.
It is, man. It's a survival right now for everybody else. They better figure out how they're going to compete moving forward with not just the money, but the sports and the TV, too. Mm-hmm. Like, it is a very competitive game being played right now with TV streaming and college sports at this point. It's such a regional thing that teams feel like they can just really just captivate their audience in their cities while also trying to build their brand, too. That's one thing about college sports is what's in Clemson, right? It's the football team. It's their sports that they have. It's baseball at that point.
Right.
Same goes for Knoxville. Like, you got to be in a position where you can make as many dollars as you can. There are 195 Division I FCS teams. Is it not? However many the number is. Like, and to
135.
135. To put yourself in a position to where you want to do revenue sharing and splitting of money. No, I want all of mine to be my money only. Like, that's the reason, like, right now, Notre Dame is, I'm talking about prom king every single year. They're getting the biggest check. They're getting the most televised games, and they got one of the bigger fan bases in the country right now because of what they do with the TV. And other teams are seeing this and trying to see how they can captivate themselves or captivate this for their own schools too. Texas was trying to, the Longhorn Network. We got the Vol. Like, there's a lot of that going on to where it's not just TV games. It's not just the games that you have on TV. And that comes slim too, because right now the Big Ten and the SEC dominate the primetime games too, right? And when you
they
live
got the media money.
They got the media money. And when you live that life and you're falling behind as far as recruiting, as far as facilities, as far as coaches, as far as buying competitive coaches, this is what happens from it also. It's not just the prospects, it's the coaches too. So, yeah, they are trying to find their way out. And what bigger brand do they have out of the ACC than those two right now?
This has been the story for the past 2 years at least, with Clemson and Florida State in particular wanting out of the ACC. It's been highly documented, in fact. It got quiet there for a minute when they added a little bit more to their conference with, I believe, SMU, Cal, and Stanford.
And they were getting sued.
Yeah. And so this is by no surprise, though, that this has popped up again. I truly feel like Clemson and Florida State are going to do everything they can to break out a jail. I just watched Shawshank Redemption again last night, and carve out a tunnel, whatever it is, to get out of the ACC, because they know when it's all said and done, Big Ten and SEC are big daddies. Like, those are the two conferences where if you are a brand of any sort, especially in football, that's where you want to crawl to. And I think that if those two leave the ACC, which it looks like they could do with the money aspect that he just laid out, that's going to be bad news for that conference. And I know there's other schools that are there that could try to make it work, but take it from somebody who saw the Pac-12 crumble and then trying to rebuild the Pac-12. It's just not the same, and they can do it, but they're not a Power 5 conference anymore. And I would see Cal and Stanford going back, probably rejoining the Pac-12 in this situation, just because fiscally, I don't know how they even are going to continue to do this with all the Olympic sports that they have to travel for. It's been 1 year, and I feel like it's a complicated situation for them. So, yeah, this could be another situation where you see a conference like the ACC crumbling. It might not be over a year, but it could happen over a couple of years' time. I can
tell you, as a former Olympic sport athlete, they don't care about us. Don't worry. It's all about football. And then maybe 10% of it's basketball. I think so. The significance of why this is coming back up is because the lawsuits are finally getting settled. So it's taking time, the legalese, the lawyers fighting back and forth between the ACC and Florida State and Clemson. And the ACC will trumpet this as a win to say, we settled this, we gave you a number, we figured this out. And maybe it is a win for them. But the cost to leave is still high. To me, 2029 to 2030 is when this is going to happen, because that is when the Big Ten's media deal is also able to be renegotiated as well. So that is when their current media rights deal expires. So the Big Ten and SEC have really important decisions to make. Is it in the SEC's best interest to keep the Big Ten from getting to 20 teams with Clemson and Florida State? Because Greg Sankey now has some decisions to make. He might have to compromise on something that ideally he wouldn't want to do in order to continue being the best conference in college athletics in the major sports at this point. So does the SEC decide, well, let's counter and take the other two brands that are interesting out of the ACC, North Carolina and Miami? Really, it's those four teams that are in the mix of this: Clemson and Florida State, North Carolina and Miami. At this point, I feel like two of those teams are going to go to the Big Ten and two are going to go to the SEC. That's where I think this thing is heading at this point. It's either that or we get a closer step to, hey, this is just a super conference and the Big Ten and SEC just are their own thing. We are getting closer and closer to that as decisions like this are being made.
I've always somewhat thought Miami and Florida State should have been in the SEC. But I get it, the ACC. And again, the branding is there as far as North Carolina, and if you're looking at Florida State being those types of squads. I mean, Florida State and North Carolina and Miami.
Yeah.
It makes sense. If you do grab all four, to be completely honest with you, Will, why not go ahead and beat the Big Ten to the punch when you look at those other two teams coming in? The branding is there as far as the SEC.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And logistically, it works out a whole lot better instead of Clemson having to go all the way to Oregon for a conference.
They don't care about that.
I know they don't, but
if they have more money to pay for it, then they'll do it.
They'll use it as an excuse. And I know the secondary sports have complained about it, but again, football is what matters when you're making these business decisions.
Well, the challenge for both of these conferences is, can we add enough value to our television partners to give everyone more? Because if you have the same pot that's being divided up 18 times versus 20 times, everyone gets less. Teams are not going to vote for that.
No.
So that's why at the end of a media rights deal, it makes more sense. You can go to CBS and Fox and say, well, we're adding these 2 markets in the Southeast. Give us more money. That way all of us can share more of a bigger pot. Because when you make the pot bigger, you also got to add in more ingredients. That way everyone gets more out of it. That's the challenge for both these conferences.
What's interesting about that then, and you're talking about market size, so I see UNC fitting in a bigger market size. And I'm not talking about brand, guys. I'm talking about market size. A lot of these colleges are in smaller kind of college campus towns. Like, they're not in big cities. Now, Tallahassee, I would probably say that would fit into that. But that's also interesting. Clemson is not like a big city, right? I mean, that's not considered a big market.
It's a national brand.
It is. But I also wonder if they're going strictly with market size too, how that plays into it.
I think it's less about the cities the schools are in. Like, if you get UNC, you get Charlotte.
Yeah.
If you get UNC, you get...
Right, that's why I said UNC fits into it.
Right, like you get Florida State, you're not just getting Tallahassee, you're getting Tampa. You're getting Orlando. You're getting, Miami. If you get Miami, that one speaks for it. That one's easy.
Miami
obviously.
is
they're the outlier
They'll be
within all
fighting
of this.
for that one.
So it's interesting. I feel like the ACC has a really big call in terms of just getting a better media deal to keep these teams. But Clemson and Florida State are 1 foot out the door already. Who follows them and to where is the next question. Like, is Greg Sankey willing to play defense against the Big Ten?
And he's been very adamant on, we don't want to add, but it's a game of chess now, right?
Might have to.
You might have to make the move.
And do you take North Carolina without taking Duke?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Which is wild, but hey, it happens.
For sure.
You know?
Wow.
Yeah, their rivalries mean nothing.
Yeah, don't mean anything anymore.
They do to the fans, but not to television and not to, conference executives.
They're
and that's why
find a way to play.
And that's why the sport's changing.
You might have to take Duke on that one. Whoever gets them, in my personal opinion.
You're done.
I'm with you, but you have to take them because of the rivalry and what it means. At least on the sake, because here's the other part of it too. The basketball side of the SEC hadn't cashed in yet.
I know, but
they hadn't cashed in yet.
Unfortunately, decisions are not made based on basketball.
But the championship
or basketball rivalries.
The championship and optics around the SEC having a winner means a whole lot more too.
Texas A&M left Texas.
Yeah, and look at them now. They're back together.
Oklahoma
again.
Left Oklahoma State.
And they're back together.
Washington State, Washington, Oregon State. Like, the rivalries have not been enough to tether these teams together.
They'll probably be like, you can still play them. Like, we still play Washington, right? They're like, well, schedule it.
I mean, that's an every year game.
As a fan, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Television executives, unfortunately, are not doing what's best for fans.
I agree with you.
They're doing what's best for them.
They're going to thump Duke out.
Yeah, for sure.
Duke's ceiling in football was a 9-4 year with David Cutcliffe.
Who's Vandy going to compete with then if Duke don't come over?
Stanford? I don't know. Northwestern? All the other smart schools.
Vandy fans, I've been nice to y'all as of late. That was my first shot. Oh, look, they upset us on the gym, man. I mean, there's that.
Back to the NFL discussion. I think the Titans, if they pick with the number 1 overall pick, have one player they could take. Is there a scenario where the Titans take anyone not named Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick? We'll talk about it next.
It's Ramon Foster for Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Good people, man. They've been in business here since 1990 and are family owned and operated. Jimmy Hiller was recently named among the most admired CEOs because of the way he truly cares for his team and his clients, man. Hiller takes care of the customer on every job, every single time, and they stand by the work so much that their motto is happy you'll be or the service is free. And they mean it, all right? Because if a customer isn't pleased with the work performed, they will make it right. They always send a professional, experienced experienced trustworthy technicians to come into your home and they leave it cleaner and, of course, better than where they found it if you need something that needs to be fixed. Best thing that I like about Hiller is this, man. There's no surprises with them. Hiller offers true transparency pricing, which means that if Hiller would line item every part of the job up front so homeowners can easily understand what they're paying for and why, man. There will be no hidden fees, no added costs, and no surprises when you get your bill. If you need anything fixed around your home, whether it be heating, cooling, or electrical or plumbing, listen to me. Reach out to the folks that I trust at happyhiller.com.
RKW on 104.5 The Zone is brewed by Scooters Coffee. Visit your local Middle Tennessee Scooters locations in Brentwood, Goodlettsville, Mount Juliet, Smyrna, and White House. Scooters, amazing people, amazing drinks, amazingly fast. Streaming live at 104.5 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch, where Eli writes in on YouTube and says, I listen to you guys every morning, tuning in from Phoenix, Arizona.
Nice, Eli.
Thank you, Eli.
And that is my nephew's name, so love the name.
There you go.
Very cool.
Early morning in Phoenix, too, to be up with us already. So
5:20 there. Oof.
That's dedication.
Yeah, it is.
Either really love us or really love the Titans. Or both. Who's to say?
Really love us.
Okay.
I think so, too.
What do you got?
What are you
eating?
eating?
Somebody bring in something we need to graze
No,
on?
y'all don't want this.
Why?
Y'all don't want this.
It's not good? Oh, he's saying that because we want it.
No, okay. All right, go ahead and have him. Your husband ain't gonna kiss you later,
Well,
okay?
what is it?
It's,
That's fine.
Oh,
damn.
Wow.
Travis, I didn't solicit
That's
that. Kayla said it. It's beef jerky that Bert had over there. It's garlic and onion. I'm gonna have to brush my teeth before I
Did
go
he
home.
make it?
No, he didn't make this.
It's not venison? Okay.
There
It's
you
not
go.
that. This is good though.
If the Titans stay at number one, do they have to take a quarterback? At this point, I feel like there's two options that you have that are, if you're giving me one of these two things are going to happen or every other possibility, I would take these two things. Number one would be the Titans draft Cam Ward with the number one overall pick. Number two would be the Titans trade back with the Giants to the third pick and draft Abdul Carter. Do you agree that one of those two things is going to happen?
Yes.
Oh,
Sorry, I thought you're chewing.
Not everyone at once.
I was trying. I thought you was gonna
yes,
go ahead for me.
Let's not all step on each other's toes to answer the question.
He was finishing his food. I believe that either of those will happen. Absolutely. Do I feel like taking a quarterback is the only answer? It's what I would like them to do, but I actually have been on here plenty of times saying if they decided to go with Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. I'm sorry. Yeah, Travis Hunter. I would still be accepting of that. I think that you can't really go wrong. I think fixing the quarterback situation, if they feel like one of these quarterbacks is right for what they want, that's the thing you got to go with. But if you don't feel like one of those quarterbacks is right for your system right now or your team right now, I'm also going to trust them that they're making the right decision. And Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, sign me up. I'd actually go with Travis Hunter before Abdul Carter. And I've said this many times because I think with a talent like that, just get him in the building. And if you can utilize him in any way, you're going to probably put him in at corner. That's what Brian Callahan said at the NFL draft. If they were to bring him in, it'd probably be at corner. But he then said we'd give him opportunities to play offense or to return punts, whatever it might be. I just think that he gives you so many options. Why not take him and just get him in the building and then build upon what his talent is?
The way I look at this, I don't want to sell this franchise short. All right, to be ambitious is something you need in this business. It absolutely does, and you got to be ambitious about what you're trying to do and what you're planning on doing too, to help build a team, to help make it sustainable, to help your brand be more than just an NFL team. You want it to be something that's capable of sustaining itself, that, look, no matter what happens from here on out, you place another one of player X into that position and it sustains itself. It moves forward. You don't have to worry about, okay, what's our plan for the future? With this new staff and how they got to go about taking their time and having a method that signifies this is the Titans way. I think what's so crazy about this entire process, well, I'm going to get to the answer, I promise, okay? What sucks about this entire process that we're dealing with right now, as I said earlier, it's been 3 years of major dramatic changes that have happened. Breaking news sounder, year in and year out at the end of the season. We've had that happen here. John Robinson before the season ended, okay? And there's no operating standard of what a Titan is right now. Mm-hmm. That's why you love so much what Steve was, right? And Eddie. And there was an era that AJ and Tannehill, Tannehill appreciation moment right here.
There you go.
Really took this team to another stance, right? To another level, a different tier that you felt like, yeah, you're proud to wear your Titan stuff in away stadiums. You were glad to talk about it at the water cooler at work. Now every person having a conversation about this team and specifically this number 1 overall draft pick is you can't trust it. You absolutely cannot trust it all. So if there is a scenario where the Titans stick and pick at number 1, the guy to me is Abdul Carter. I think optics, you pass that. You pass the production side of it. You know he's a dynamic player as it pertains to him playing off the ball and off the line of scrimmage. By his pro day, his foot's supposed to be good. Here's also another little pro tip around the league, too. A lot of people believe Penn State players juice their numbers on their stadium, too. They say that the turf is a little bit softer, so they get a little bit more bounce when they're running their 40s. He's going to run a crazy 40. Allegedly is what happens on their campus, okay? Yeah, no, that's why a lot of players elect to do it on their college campuses, too.
Or because it's a 39-yard dash instead of a 40-yard dash.
Listen to me now.
Oh, no, I'm familiar.
Oh, yeah, I'll be picking. But to me, the guy is Abdul Carter. And here's why, too. Defensively, as where most of your maturity is, your leadership is, and also your biggest playmakers on this team is, too. You got 1 wide receiver, 2 running backs, and 1 is on the rookie deal right now. A tight end group that you don't necessarily trust. Build up one side of the line and let the other one grow and water the seed. So it's Abdul Carter to me.
Question on YouTube to follow up on that is, why does it matter what a Titan is? Why does team identity matter?
Because you know what the expectation is. Around the league, I had somebody, Bucky Brooks, in Jacksonville. He was like, man, whenever we were covering the Titans and playing, he was like, when those guys got off the bus, you knew what attitude was. You knew that it was going to be a hard game. This is somebody who now covers the league that's been around it for a very long time working for the opposing team. He was like, and Jacksonville doesn't have that either. They don't have the Fred Taylors and John Hendersons that's coming off that bus no more. That identity matters because there's an expectation of play when you walk inside the stadiums. The reason it matters is this, whoever asked that question, that's a great question, by the way. It's just, now I'm in my lane, okay? It's because whenever you get off the bus and you know it's time to go play, you don't want the opposing team saying, look, y'all, we'll just do bare minimum today because we're going to whoop their ass regardless. That happens at leagues. Cleveland was a team like that. Arizona's a team like that. Jacksonville's a team like that. Portions of your tenure here in Tennessee has been that way. You don't say the same thing when Green Bay comes to town. Why does it matter? Because when Minnesota came into that stadium this past year, the bottom bowl was all purple and gold. That's why the identity of what a Tennessee Titans is. And the fan base carries that. If you know that, look, Tennessee Tough is a thing, correct? Who's Tennessee Tough on this squad right now? Jeff and who? That's why it matters, because you remember the days of watching Hainsworth and Vanden Bosch and Curse and those guys, wreck guys, bully. You can tell me what a Titan is in that group. You can't tell me what a Titan is in this group right now. Can you?
I mean, like you said, Jeffrey Simmons is about the only one.
That's why it matters.
And that's not enough. And honestly, though, Moan, that's why I almost say I almost feel like if you feel like one of these quarterbacks can move it to that level, they're going to be, perspective-wise, they're going to be able to do it the most in terms of this is what we want. Your quarterback setting the culture. And I do feel like both these guys have that mindset, that toughness to them, that they can kind of bring in that mentality if that's what they're looking for in kind of building the identity of this team. I feel like at least if you're going to do it with a quarterback. Do it with an exclamation point. If you feel like one of those guys can truly be your guys, because they're going to be the most polarizing.
I was going to say, and Derek, that's what
when he was here, right.
But that was also what held your identity to just one person, Derek. It shouldn't also just be one person. And that's what it's been since it's been bad here in the last 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah.
It's been Derrick Henry and the Temptations.
I think considering what we know now about the teams behind the Titans, I do not believe that they can take anyone other than Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick. Because we know 2 things. The Giants want to move up because they're desperate and they didn't get Matthew Stafford. And we know the Browns are taking a quarterback. At this point, I think in the top 3 picks, doesn't that feel like the thing that's most known is the Browns are going to draft one of the 2 quarterbacks?
Yeah.
So at that point, if you stick at number 1, it better be for a quarterback because you can move back to 3 if you really want to with the New York Giants and take Abdul Carter. That to me, if I'm staying at 1, I'm drafting Cam Ward. Yeah. I don't think the Titans can afford to draft Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter with the number 1 overall pick It's not my first choice. My first choice is to trade back to 3 and take Abdul Carter. But if you stay at 1, it better be for a quarterback.
It justifies it.
It does.
Does it matter, the justification of the pick?
Oh, it absolutely does.
Absolutely
because if you're staying at 1, it means you love Cam Ward and you're willing to take him. At this point, it does feel like Shedeur Sanders' stock is falling out of the NFL Combine, and Cam Ward's is at least consistent. I don't know if it's up. I don't know. It's definitely not down.
He's the quarterback draft guy that we're speaking of. Right.
He's the number 1 quarterback in this draft. I feel like comfortably at this point. And discourse is what it is. And maybe a lot of people are trying to mislead us. And that could be the case. But I just feel like if you're at 1, you got to take Cam Ward. If you trade back, you've got to take Abdul Carter. I think it's those 2 options. Then I think it's everything else.
But if they don't take Cam Ward, I do feel like it's still a justifiable pick with the guy that's been held far and above all other prospects in this draft class as far as his position. That is Abdul Carter.
I would be frustrated if they took Abdul Carter with the number 1 overall pick.
I'm a little shocked.
Because I think they could easily do that with the 3rd pick.
But you're never Garrett. I know what you're saying. Like the Giants, no matter what, if they don't get their quarterback in free agency, they're going to want the quarterback in the draft.
Yep.
But what if they do get their quarterback in free agency and they don't give you enough to try, or they don't want to trade up? Like there's still,
I don't see that happening.
There's still that question of like trade, and would you be willing to do it for a minimal, bag? What if they don't want to give you a big bag?
I think the only scenario where they're out of the trade market is if they sign Sam Darnold. And a lot of the reporting out of Jersey says that even if they signed Aaron Rodgers, they would still want to trade up for the number 1 overall pick.
Right.
Like they are desperate, man. Like John Mara and what he has said publicly, that's a desperate football team that
desperate.
You can really take advantage of right now. Really take advantage of. So, again, plan A is trade back and take Abdul Carter. I'd rather have Abdul Carter as a Tennessee Titan than Cam Ward. No questions asked. But if you are sticking at number 1, I would rather take Cam Ward.
I get that. By the way, too, I see somebody was just like, I'm shocked by my take. The question was what? If they didn't take a quarterback, because you see them taking
Do they have to take a QB if they stick at 1 was the question.
Yeah. They don't have to.
No, they don't have to.
You don't have to do anything they want to do.
No. 615-737-1045. Mark is at the Borough first up. Hey, Mark.
Hey, RK Dub.
What's up, Mark?
What's going on, y'all? I would say I'm with you, Will. If we go number 1, we got to take Cam just because he's the best quarterback in the draft, arguably, I guess. But if we don't, we got to trade back. Trade back is the next best. Honestly, I think it's the first best scenario. We trade back. If we don't trade back, then get Cam. But I'm with you, man. Abdul has to be number 3, but we got to make these teams respect that number 1. You can't. There's no respect taking Abdul at number 1. I mean, that's just my opinion. We don't get any draft capital off that, and then also he got 2 injuries. We're not sure if he's going to be the guy long term, or even if he's going to start right away. So Cam, KK, I'm with you as far as the identity of the team being brought around a quarterback. And I think Cam is the guy, or Shedeur. So that's my take. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Appreciate the call. ESPN's Jordan Reed this morning has a new 2-round mock draft. And he has the Titans trading back at 3 with the Giants based on what he's heard out of the Combine.
Right. Does he have who they would pick, the Titans?
Abdul Carter.
Okay.
Yep.
That's interesting, though. I mean, Mike Borgonzi did mention in the the Combine this last week that there is a lot of depth at that edge position. So, which makes me think, like, do they think they could go get somebody else in terms of that spot somewhere?
Yeah, he also said we want guys with rare physical traits at the number 1 overall pick. Yeah. And he described Abdul Carter as someone who fits within that mold.
Yeah.
Him and Travis Hunter both. I think the number 1 pick you almost view differently than you do. Like, you view that independent of the rest of the draft class.
Yeah, you do. You do. But here's the thing, though, too. If you had a run-stopping defense this past year, maybe you compete a little bit better, too. right? That's what you're looking for. For me, if you don't have the ability to take, or if you don't want to take them, I am a huge advocate of like really good defenses helping the offense grow up. Because in my mind, here's the thing. So we're speaking about the potential of these quarterbacks. That position takes longer to really like mature. Josh Allen is just coming into his right now, right? Like Josh Allen had these same question marks behind him, albeit I think he was a higher prospect when he came out. But if you can govern the arm, if you can get him to make better decisions, what's the conversation? Now you're at that point. So, again, look at Joe Burrow. Hate to keep using him, but that's also the issue, right? His defense is cheeks right now.
Yeah.
Wouldn't he love to have a competent defense?
Or an offensive line?
I just think this offense has been so far behind. I mean, we're talking about a team that scored 17 points the last several years, like 2 years at least. And they're just, it just feels like year after year after year, they're anemic offensively. They just don't have the right pieces, or they haven't added enough pieces. So I get what you're saying 100%, Moan. And you always have got to have a solid defense.
Oh.
But I'm just like, at what point did they just say, we're going to go get our damn quarterback and start this thing?
I know, but the issue is so many. We're doing every scenario on this number one pick except for picking one. Everybody wants to trade out. Everybody wants to split hairs with both of them. And you still got to build the team up too. Mm-hmm. So this isn't, even the last 2 years, as I said earlier, this isn't Caleb Williams. This isn't C.J. Stroud. This isn't any of these guys. It's none of them at this point. It's not Bryce Young.
It's closer to Kenny Pickett than it is those guys.
Straight up.
Yeah.
And I'm not calling him Kenny Pickett, but that year in 2020 or 2021, yeah, it was him and Malik Willis was almost a first rounder.
Yeah. We were talking about Malik Willis as a potential number one overall pick.
That's
like
the issue. 2
weeks before the draft, and then we'll look how that turned out.
Yeah, I think a lot of that was hype too. I mean, I feel like Malik Willis, if you really broke it down and looked at what he was in at Liberty system-wise and not a lot of time playing, I don't think anybody would have thought he's a first-round pick at that point.
I mean, he played a lot. It was just at Liberty.
Yeah.
I mean, people were making the Mahomes. Okay.
I'm saying, I'm not talking to you specifically, Will. I'm just saying in general. Like, I just don't think anybody, if they were really telling the truth, knew he was going to be a first-round pick. I just don't think that was a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know beforehand, right? Like, which of these truths that we believe are truths are real or just something to mislead everyone.
Right, and there's always last-minute quarterback hype, too. I mean, Jackson Dart could get a lot more love here in the next few weeks.
Hayden Hooker.
Yeah, I mean, it did
Hooker
happen.
People thought would be a first-round pick,
right.
And then he dropped. Will Levis had some number one overall pick hype. The trade Jordan Reed has proposed from the Giants to the Titans is the number 3 pick, a second-round pick, number 34 this season, and the third-round pick next season. Would you take that deal?
Third overall, second round
number
this
3,
year,
number
and
34, and the third next year.
Give me a 5th, too. I think that's a good starting point. I do think that's a real good starting point. Or if you can get a 5th this year. This year, the third pick, the 34th pick, and another 5th, and the third next year. I got to squeeze him because you're going for a quarterback.
Kayla, would you take 3, 34, and a third next year for the number one overall pick?
I wouldn't be against it, Will, but I saw the 33rd team put out their kind of mock 2 on that, and they were saying you'd get a third this year, a third this year, third overall, third this year, and then you would get a second next year.
Well, this is a better deal because you get a second this year.
Oh, you get a second this year. Okay,
you get 3, 34, and a third next year.
Yeah, then I think I would do it.
I think it's realistic.
I think I'd do it. You get 2 seconds this year in terms of your overall picks.
I've got another trade proposal coming up for you in a few minutes that was also put out there from Jason of Over the Cap that is way better than that. But we'll get to that coming up at 8 o'clock. 615-737-1045. We'll go rapid fire on your reaction coming up next. Would love to hear from you and your thoughts. Do the Titans have to take a quarterback if they stay at the number 1 overall pick? Your call's next.
Living in Nashville is absolutely great. And while it is a growing city, you still want to work with people that you trust, including a real estate agent. That is why you definitely need to check out my friend Bernie Gallerani. Bernie Gallerani has years of experience. He's going to know the neighborhoods and care about your buying or selling goals. In fact, Bernie guarantees to sell your home in 30 days or less, or he'll just buy it from you. Look, selling a high-end home requires experience, strategy, expert negotiation. That is exactly why Casey chose Bernie Gallerani Real Estate. After interviewing multiple agents, Casey wanted someone with a proven track record in high-dollar home sales, and Elisa Brown delivered. And even when unexpected challenges arose, Elisa navigated negotiations, worked through every obstacle, made sure the deal stayed on track. Bernie is the only real estate agent here in Nashville, recommended by Barbara Corcoran of Shark Tank, and the only agent I would trust to sell my home. So give him a call on his cell phone. In fact, 615-428-2644. That's 615-428-2644, or go to BernieGallerani.com.
RKW on 104.5 The Zone continues. Wrapping up the first half of the show. We are brewed by Scooter's Coffee. 615-737-1045 with some open phone lines. What are you doing with the number one pick, and do you have to take a QB if you stay there? Larissa, first up on the phones this morning. What's up, Larissa?
Good morning, everybody. Happy
morning.
Tuesday. Luis Mates. If you know Spanish, you know that means Tuesday. But this draft is going to be really interesting, and it's very intriguing, in my opinion, for every team, because you don't know what's about to happen. And I think this is going to be one of the first times, in my very humble opinion, that people are going to be glued to their TVs to see how this is going to work. But I definitely want to piggyback on what Rome had said earlier in regards to identity and the legends. You know, because when you mention the Titans and you get off the plane, you get off the bus, you kind of know exactly who the Warriors are. And you mentioned some of the great legends. We've got great legends that live here still. You've got Blaine Bishop, that's one of your teammates. Cortland Finnegan. I mean, he was scrappy. And so, you know, I mean, I want to ask this of all of you. Do you think a lot of these athletes now are really getting caught up in the money? You know, name, image, and likeness. Has that become a little jaded with a lot of folks coming out of high school and college, that they're forgetting exactly why they love the sport? But I agree. The Titans are great fan base, great city, great show. And I'm going to hang up and listen.
Thank you, Larissa.
Thanks, Marissa.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, my personal opinion, those guys, they get sifted out eventually. If you're chasing the money, you eventually get sifted out. There's also on the front office, too, to go after guys who are what they like to call football players. Like, there's guys who are athletes that play sports, and then there are people who specifically specialize in what they're doing. Hey, Ken Griffey Jr., baseball player. You knew that, right? Like, you understood what these guys mean, like, and that's what you have to be after, is that football character. The ones that chase the bread, they'll be good enough. They will, and you need them dudes on your team. But the majority of your squad got to be comprised of football players. And the money just so happens to be a part of it. You can't erase that either, Larissa.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that not all of those guys either that are, I mean, you're making money at the college level no matter what, I feel like. Most guys, though, that are really highly touted, they're making more money, right? The quarterback, some of the big-time positions, even offensive linemen nowadays, the positions are a lot more important at the college level. But I don't think that necessarily translates to what they can be at the next level. I think you can weed those guys out, like Moan said. But I do feel like this. I do feel like there are players that are just so much about football still, that the money matters, and especially it matters in the NFL when you get to the next level. You want to continue to get that next contract. And I think that's maybe one of the biggest things too. In the NFL, you're trying to make your career prolonged. Yeah. I mean, it's not just 4 years at the most. I mean, you want to go for 13, 14 years. So, yeah, I think that the money's not necessarily playing into that part of it.
Daryl in the Borough, next up, 615-737-1045. Hey, Daryl.
What's up, fam?
What's going on, man?
Yeah, I got tired of using my thumbs in the chat, so I wanted to call in.
Sure.
Understandable.
So one thing I want to go over is, if we trade back, I want to kind of make a splash and draft our Tennessee boy, James Pierce. I mean, if we are worried about Carter's his foot, why don't we take who was previously a top 3 pick before the season started? I like that we could also have 2 second-round picks with the trade back with the Giants, and also grab a tackle, maybe even Walter Nolan at that point.
Right.
Thank you, Daryl. Appreciate the call.
Appreciate it.
I don't think James Pierce had the production last season to still be a top 5 talent. I think the only way you would trade back to get James Pierce is if you either traded back twice, or someone really surprising like the Cowboys, entered the mix and you were at 12.
Right.
But even still, I think you might be able to get James Pierce with one of those second-round picks.
Well,
that I would be okay with. Taking James Pierce in the second round, sign me up.
No way he makes it past Philly.
I agree.
Are you almost thinking Philly's the place? I swear. I feel like they always
or
are.
Kansas City. Yeah. He's a Baltimore.
It's such an again when we talk about type. There we go.
Fits. Yeah.
So what a Titan looks like, that's what an Eagle looks like.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
See, we can
He'd be
describe
such a stud in Philly too.
Wouldn't you hate it?
I know. I know.
See, types matter.
Jeff in Smyrna up next. Hey, Jeff.
How's it going, fellas?
Good morning.
Hey, I personally think the roster is not quite ready for a quarterback. Like, you get your franchise guy to elevate the roster, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you take Trevor Lawrence, that whole example. Like, excellent prospect. They drafted him, dropped him into a roster that was not equipped to handle anything, and what's he done?
Yeah. He's got a lot of red flags from here on out. That's what it is. People questioning him. Yeah.
So, if you take Cam Ward at number 1, I can't be mad at it. I personally prefer, trade back and get Abdul Carter at 3.
Thank you, Jeff.
That's the ideal scenario.
Appreciate it, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate the call.
Thanks, fella.
Whew. It's options, Will.
Kevin in Indianapolis up next as we wrap up hour 2. What's up, Kevin?
Hey, good morning, everybody.
What's up?
Hey, for me personally, I would want to stick and pick a quarterback because if I'm Callahan, I would rather have someone that I'm able to implement into my system and showcase what I am as a head coach. If you go ahead and drop back and pick Abdul Carter, basically everybody who plays football knows that you can scheme up protections and stuff like that, and you can eliminate him in a game, and it really wouldn't save my job, but a quarterback would. So for me personally, I would want to stick and pick a quarterback as opposed to slide back and pick someone that basically you can eliminate from a game.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin. I agree with that. The problem is he's not the GM, and it's not up to Brian Callahan, unfortunately. This isn't an Andy Reid situation where the head coach has got final personnel say. Chad Brinker has final personnel say.
And I don't know. I mean, I think Brian Callahan's job, no matter what, is still on the rocks. Like, it's just about, for him, winning a certain amount of games. I don't even know if drafting a quarterback would prolong his situation, because if he can't win games, I just don't think he's going to be here. But that's just my thoughts.
I agree. And that's why
he has a short lease.
I totally agree, and I think that's why he doesn't have the authority to pick. Like, why should I, as an organization, let the head coach pick the quarterback when I'm not 1,000% sure the head coach is going to be here in 5 years when that rookie quarterback contract is over?
Like, will he have say? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
He'll
of
have
course.
say.
Right.
But I think when it comes down to it, I do believe Mike Borgonzi is running the absolute show here.
I agree. And, there are not a lot of head coaches that just get unilateral control to pick who they want at quarterback in the NFL. Andy Reid is one, but I don't believe Brian Callahan is one. Coming up, I've got trade options for you guys. I've got 2 choices, a Giants trade and a Jets trade from Jason of Over the Cap. Both of them legitimate options that I think Titans fans are going to really like. And I'll give them to you next. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Will Bowling. Today is franchise tag deadline day in the NFL. Yesterday, we got updates, one from the NFC and one from the AFC. The Vikings, according to a report from NFL Network's Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero, are not expected to franchise tag quarterback Sam Darnold. The report says all parties are working through options to potentially keep him in Minnesota. The franchise tag for quarterbacks is $40.24 million for the non-exclusive tender. And in the AFC, the Bengals announced Monday that they have used their franchise tag on wide receiver T. Higgins for a second straight season. If Higgins signs the tag and ends up playing on it, he would make a guaranteed $26.2 million for 2025. That's 120% of the $20.6 million he made on last season's tag. Last night on the hardwood, Duke beats Wake Forest 93-60, clinching at least a share of the ACC regular season title behind 28 points from freshman Cooper Flagg. And in the Big 12, number 3 Houston won its 9th straight game with a 65-59 win over Kansas. LJ Cryer had 22 points for the Cougars. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone. And we brewed up a fresh hour of the show for you this morning. RKW 104.5 The Zone. Visit your local Middle Tennessee Scooters locations in Brentwood, Goodlettsville, Mount Juliet, Smyrna, and White House. Amazing people, amazing drinks, amazingly fast. That is also how fast the first 2 hours of the program have elapsed this morning. With Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson, I'm Will Bowling. Justin Hawkins is our producer. And in 15 minutes, we'll be joined by VolQuest's Austin Price. Spring practice upon us for Tennessee football on Friday. Football is back.
It's already
Not
here?
really, but football is back.
They got a spring practice in between spring break, too. I would hate that. God, I would hate that.
Yeah, it's not great.
That's not great at all.
Jason Fitzgerald of OverTheCap.com has a trade from the Giants and the Jets that I think Titans fans are going to love. So he writes, what might it cost for the Giants to move up to the top pick this year? He says they hold the 3rd overall pick, which is a big help, and to get to the 3,000-point premium, according to the trade chart that is an industry standard, you would probably be looking at giving up the 3rd overall pick and 34th overall pick and next year's 1st and 3rd from the New York Giants.
Holy smokes.
So what is interesting about this is Jason Fitzgerald makes the point. Anytime anyone has ever moved up for a number 1 overall pick to take a quarterback, they have significantly overpaid. He makes the point. That's how this works. Essentially, you almost have to double the trade value of the number 1 pick in order to move up to the number 1 pick. So that's option 1. At Ramon Kayla Willer, you can vote on our poll. Giants trade 3, 34, 1st round pick next season, 3rd round pick next season. But then there's this from the Jets that he says is also realistic. 7, 42, 109. So you get 3 picks this year and 1st round pick next year, 3rd round pick next year.
Wow, give me that one.
So would you rather have pick 34 and no additional pick? Would you rather have pick 42 and then also get 109 plus 1st and 3rd next year from the Jets?
I almost like that one better.
I know, but you're missing out on the top 7. You're still top 7.
You are.
That's what you got to balance right there, the top 7. Just a quick little, I guess, top 7 prospects right here.
Give me the Giants pick, take Abdul Carter, and come on home.
You're going 3.
That number 1 jersey's going to look great on that press conference.
So when you look at this is, I almost feel like I kind of want one of those number 7 overall picks right here is the way I view it. Because you still get that 100th pick right there in the 3rd round. This year you still wouldn't get the 100th pick, although you get 3 picks in the top in the first 2 rounds. So I'll give me Giants. I'll take Giants.
There are other edges
Giants.
if you want to do the edge and you feel
That's
like
true.
that edge you fall just much love with. I mean, again, we can say all we want that Abdul Carter, is generational, and that's fine. But if they think that one of these other guys can be just as good and they get that deal out of it, hell yeah, sign me up.
Yeah, you may be able to squeeze one more out of the Giants, too, because their owner you said what this year? I mean, he also said that John Mara,
they're desperate.
They're desperate.
I don't think you could squeeze any more out of it. I think you're going to get less than this from both teams.
Yeah.
There seems to be a pretty big disconnect national media-wise in terms of what it's going to take to move up. Because you got then Dane Brugler, the Athletic, saying this morning in his new mock draft, which also has the Titans trading down with the Giants and the Giants taking Cam Ward. Dane Brugler says packaging a pair of day 2 picks would likely be enough to put Cam Ward in a Giants jersey.
No firsts.
No firsts.
Oh, no.
Just 3 and then 2 day 2 picks. Which you guys said the other day you would take.
I would take 2 day 2.
We all said the other day we would take
I'm
that.
taking.
Oh, you still get, okay, never mind.
Well, you still
Sorry.
get the third pick.
Yeah.
That's a non-starter.
I was like,
3.
wait a second.
Yeah.
I was confused. Okay.
1 for 3. Yeah, that makes sense. Give me that Giants one this year. Go ahead and restart and reset it. You picking in the top 3 right now. The quality, the quality of picks at that point too. And again, my contingency is I'd much rather have somebody on the D-line right now, considering Harold wants his way out. There has to be a replacement. We're saying the same thing that Cleveland is trying to do, but if he's not there, you still get the Travis Hunter sweepstakes too. So there's options at the 3rd overall pick if your quarterback isn't there. That's the good thing about sticking in being able to trade back to 3 and not move yourself out of one of those elite tier guys that we speak of. Because the one consensus is this, though. Everybody has said the best prospects in this draft have been, for the most part, Abdul, Travis, and depending upon if you need a D lineman, Mason Graham. Those have been the guys that have been consistently labeled as top round guys. Now, Mason Graham is going to be in a spot too. It has to be a fit for a guy like him too, and you don't need a big D tackle.
I mean, you could use him.
For depth?
I'd take Mason Graham.
I mean, this is essentially what Philly's done.
Yeah.
They've taken picks that they weren't. So I didn't think they were going to take Jordan Davis. And doggone didn't think they were going to double back and get Jalen Carter, too.
Considering what he did at the Combine, I think I would take the Missouri tackle Armand Mimbo if I'm going back to 7.
Yeah, he looks good.
Too.
He looks really good.
Take your pick. Either move him to play him at right or put JC at right and have him be your left
Fans
tackle.
will be like, oh, God,
another offensive line.
But when it's all said and done, you have got to shore that up at some point. You can't just keep on trickling year after year trying to just put a plug in place.
It's interesting, too. If you took that Giants deal, you would have back-to-back picks in the 2nd round. You would have 34 and 35. You could trade back again.
Oh, you could.
Yeah.
If you have 2 picks right there, and if you liked one prospect a lot, maybe didn't love 2.
And here's what also happens in those later rounds, too, after the first. There are trends that happen, too. So last year, I think it was the D-tackle trend. Remember when the Titans took Tavondre and then Fisk came off the board?
Fisk and Johnny Newton.
Sure did. All of them came off the board. So if you get one and not the other, then another team might want to trade for that spot, hopefully.
So there's a comment on Facebook Live I think is interesting that I want to react to. What?
Well, it's in the chat.
We love our viewers on Facebook
Live,
too.
They're still
I don't get y'all monitors, so I don't see the Facebook Live.
You don't get all of this
because we get all the YouTube, Twitch, everything.
Yeah.
Broderick says, I need someone to explain how Shedeur Sanders' stock dropped outside of what they didn't like a response to a question. I coached 22 years, 6 guys I coach currently in the NFL. I need a clear explanation. Ward I've watched, and he is a one-read quarterback. Even on rollouts, he follows the guy 20 yards across the field. He'll be a turnover machine over this. So what I think happens, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong, I don't think his stock necessarily changed. I just think the Combine gives everyone a chance to talk to people and learn what the internal opinions really are. So publicly, his stock has maybe dropped a little bit, but privately, I don't know if his stock was ever as high as Cam Ward's. Is that fair?
That's very fair.
I'll add to that too, because I read that situation there, the comment, and I immediately was like, you know what also is a part of that is you're right. The Combine was the first time you saw Cam Ward and Shedeur there. They both talked. It was the first kind of public situation where we were getting more out of these teams because they talked to those guys. I also think it's part of the game. I almost feel like if you are the Titans, and I'm not saying they're going out there and putting these rumors out there about Shedeur, but we've seen crazy things in the past. If you're really trying to sell the Giants or one of these teams on you're in love with a quarterback, you kind of want to make sure you're just in love with one, because that's not going to be realistic if you're selling that you're in love with two. So that's also part of the game too, guys. Like maybe you just start selling Cam Ward and a few things come out about Shedeur that teams don't like, because I do think it's weird that now his draft has plummeted a little. I don't really buy that.
Yeah. Speaking of which, too, Dane Brugler just came out speaking of Shedeur, and pretty much he has his post-combine mock draft also, and he has Shedeur going 21st to the Steelers.
Wow.
21st. That's a drop.
Interesting.
But speaking of the two quarterbacks, though, too, I do think you send a separation of talent as far as Cam and versus Shedeur. And again, all the information is taken, all the information is passed out. You get through some of the reality of what teams are thinking. And it's just that. If Shedeur ran a 4.5, 4.4, I think the conversation around him would be a whole lot different at this point. It's just that you don't know in today's NFL if you can have just a straight pocket quarterback, which is a totally opposite of 15 years ago.
So in the explanation that he gives, Dane Brugler of The Athletic says, Shedeur Sanders is going to be a wild card in this draft. He could go in the top 6 or fall out of the first round entirely, and neither outcome would be a shock. He is not a first-round quarterback for a lot of NFL teams, which isn't a major surprise, parentheses, and matches my evaluation, Dave Brugler says. But all it takes is one front office to roll the dice on his skill set. If Sanders falls out of the top 10, this would be an interesting landing spot. The Steelers are searching for answers at the QB position. I would love that if I was Pittsburgh.
Wow.
Totally love it.
Do you think there's a world we live in right now that Jackson Dart could go before him?
No.
Jackson, no.
I don't.
Okay, because it is interesting how much you're
No.
hearing like he's dropping or teams are going to have to really roll the dice. I mean, it's the narrative, I think, quickly just changed from being those two together kind of at the top to now Shedeur is not worthy.
It's just Cam. I think it's been Cam for a while. It's just that could Shedeur have helped himself more by either throwing, or what is his pro day going to look like at Colorado?
But it's not like Cam did anything more. Cam didn't throw at the combine.
Difference is conference to me. Cam did play in bigger games, although he didn't win the big games when he needed to. But Cam has, I think, what they want as far as arm, slightly better athleticism.
I mean, you don't have to convince me. I'm just kind of curious.
I know, but I'm trying to be an analyst and just say exactly what I think the separator of the two is, and it's those things right there.
But you are highly on Shedeur being
I am because
one.
of his accuracy, because Shedeur's going to have to go to a team that fits his style a whole lot more.
So do you think it's fair he has fallen this much?
Do I
or
think
that
it's
they're
fair?
saying that he's fallen?
NFL ain't fair. And it's a bunch of lies told in the preseason, too.
And see, that's what I think it is. I think it's lies to elevate Cam for Titans to sell that they're in on Cam.
Do you believe they're going to take
it? It doesn't help the Titans, though, if Shedeur's dropping, too.
But I will say this. If you're trying to sell, is it really believable if you're saying we really love both quarterbacks? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it is.
I think it's more believable if you're like, we are loving Cam. Cam's the dude. He's the one.
Well, then you would just take him.
You just take him.
If you put it out there that both of them are good, then you encourage the narrative that Cleveland's going to take them at 2. So if you want one of them, you better come up with us now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Coming up, we shift gears. VolQuest's Austin Price joins us. Tennessee spring practice starts on Friday. It is crazy. It was like 20 degrees a couple weeks ago. There's going to be football happening in Knoxville, Tennessee. We'll talk about that and talk about the final 2 games of Tennessee basketball season with Austin Price coming up next.
When couples walk into Genesis Diamonds, their eyes get so big. It's a mind-blowing display of sparkling jewelry with literally thousands of choices when it comes to engagement rings. All the styles she's seen online are right there, but the experts at Genesis make them feel totally at ease. They're offered a beverage, they're asked a lot of questions about their taste and style, and they're given a no-holds-barred education. They are even told the secrets of the jewelry business when you walk in. The consultants at Genesis are not on commission either. They are not retail clerks, and they are not not transaction focused. They can spend 30 minutes with you or they can spend 3 hours with you. It doesn't matter. You can see dozens and dozens of diamonds in an array of sizes and shapes and color grades also. You can see a handcrafted ring from all the top designers that other stores aren't even allowed to carry. You can see the difference between a diamond that is properly cut and one like you might get in one of those online places. The difference will blow you away. Bottom line, Genesis will take away all the risk, all the mystery, all the confusion, and help you make a decision that you will be confident in for years to come. Genesis Diamonds, a true direct importer, rock bottom prices, and luxury experience. No compromises. Genesis Diamonds, they're located in Green Hills and Cool Springs.
It is Austin bursting through the glass on a Tuesday morning. RKW brewed by Scooter's Coffee. Remote Foster, Kayla Anderson, and Will Bowling talking Vols with spring practice coming up. VolQuest's Austin Price joins us with the latest this morning out of Knoxville. What's up, Austin? How are you, man?
Before we get going, I just want to take just a second. We're going to do a moment of silence for Robert. No longer with us because he's moved on up to bigger and better things. And so just a moment of silence.
Gone but never forgotten.
Okay.
We never had silence.
You used his
right
full
there.
government name, Robert. And we call him Bert so much. I almost didn't recognize who you're talking about. I love it. All right, Austin, spring practice here. It comes quickly, doesn't it? Coming up this Friday. What interests you most as Tennessee hits the practice field? What do you feel like is the most interesting storyline going into the spring?
There's lots. I mean, I don't think I can just pick just one. I mean, it's not a full-blown quarterback. It's not your normal spring where you have a full-blown quarterback competition because, Nico's the guy, but there's so many spots. Wide receiver, a lot of unknown there, a lot of inexperience there. At corner, you've got the whole saga with Ricky Gibson. You got Jermod McCoy going to miss spring due to the knee surgery. What do those young DBs look like? Where's Ricky Gibson's mind at? The linebacker spot, I think it's a huge spring for Edmund Spillman. I think he's got a real chance to take a huge step. He's probably the one guy on defense I'm watching. He and Jordan Ross. Thinking those two really need to take massive leaps this spring. Really use that as a springboard into this fall. Offensive line, there's no more Cooper Mays. There's no more Javonte Spraggins. There is forced change because of graduation for the first time in the Glenn Ellerby, Josh Heupel era. And so Lance Hurd's the one returning starter. So a lot of newness on the offensive line. And then at running back, you have, some guys that got some playing time a year ago, but they were the undercard to Dylan Sampson. And now those guys are kind of battling it out to see who will be option one, although I do think it'll be mostly a committee.
Austin Price of VolQuest with us. Austin, do you expect Ricky Gibson to go through spring practice? And what's the latest on Tennessee trying to keep him from entering the transfer portal when it opens in the spring?
I do. I'd still lean to, them figuring that out with Ricky. I do think he put him in a weird spot, just the way that all played out, or the people around. I don't want to blame Ricky. I think mostly the people around Ricky put them in a weird spot. But yes, I do think he'll go through spring. I'd be surprised if he doesn't.
Austin Price with us this morning, VolQuest on 3. Austin, with that real quick, too, if he ends up getting a deal or pay increase, man, how much does Tennessee have to stand their ground with him on these negotiations also? Because if it's him right now, it might be as good as I heard Jordan Ross is. It might be him next year. What is the business side of this, Austin, that has to happen to make this a very, consensual thing?
Well, they all get. Ricky Gibson's already got a new deal. And so I think people around Ricky wanted him to try to get a little bit better of a deal, and that's the problem with this current model is because kids can just leave and do what they want to do, basically all year long. I know there's windows, but you can negotiate a deal in December, sign on a new deal in December, then go, I want a new deal in April. And there's nothing stopping you from that. There's nothing that holds you to these deals. It only protects the players. And so the way the current system's set up, the portal, amongst the NIL makes things really, really difficult, in my opinion. If it was just NIL, I don't think it would be near as bad. But when you throw in the fact that the kids have the leverage of always being able to leave at every turn, it makes things really difficult.
It does. It sounds like to me Ricky Gibson need to fire his agency if that's the case then, because if they didn't get a good deal then, you shouldn't be able to double back right now. That's a agency problem at this point, Austin. That's just my personal opinion.
Well, I think it's just kids wanting. None of the kids are ever content. Well, I don't think it's the kids. I think 90% of the time it's the adults around the kids that they want more, and it's. Okay, we want this amount of money. Oh, and we want the perks of a car, and we want the perks of, travel for mom, and we want the perks of travel for my uncle, or, whatever. So, every situation ends up, getting back down to, it's never enough. And because there's nothing that holds them to a contract, right? There are people on our website that are like, when we go get these contracts, they've all had contracts. They all signed these contracts, but because of the current situation, in most of them being marketing advanced contracts, and there's nothing holding them to it. And so they can leverage, all the time. And it's just not ideal. It's why coaches are getting out, going to the NFL, going into retirement. It's again, the coaches get paid well, right? Like Josh Heupel's making $9 million a year and Ryan Day's making 13 or whatever. And the players are starting to get paid well, and all that's great. That's why if you could just rein in the transfer portal, I think that a lot of this drama would start to dissipate a little bit.
No doubt. Also, you mentioned a second ago with Will, man, that this offense will have a sense of newness that it hasn't had, honestly, since Heupel and his staff took this job. Is this a good thing for the Vols, too? Because I feel like when you didn't know what you're going to get from player X or player Y or from Hendon Hooker or Jalen Hyatt, it flowed a little bit better. And last year it's been, the same cast of characters. And this time around, there is a whole lot of newness as far as the skill players go. The offensive line, that can be a little bit of problematic for them moving forward.
Yeah, I do think that it can be a benefit because, I think sometimes you kind of get lulled into the kind of like what's comfortable.
Yeah.
And sometimes making people or situations uncomfortable allows people or situations to flourish. And so time will tell. It's just an unknown. I mean, like the wide receivers are an unknown because they're inexperienced. I mean, Tennessee, again, has 7 as of right now, scholarship receivers, 5 of which will be here for spring practice. Technically 6, but again, Mario Jefferson will be somewhat limited, at least to start spring. So, and then out of those 5, there will be a full go to start spring. 2 of them are true freshmen. So you have, and then 2 more are basically redshirt freshmen or players that played very little last year. I mean, Chris Brazel is the only one that has significant run at wide receiver. So you don't know, but you end up may get the the end of April and go, man, they're going to be really good at receiver. You just don't know. I mean, look at Miles Kipsum. A year ago, everybody thought he's just a depth piece. And about 3 or 4 practices in, everybody started to go, he's really pretty good. And the more you kept saying it, the fans were like, no, Ethan Davis, Holden stays. And I'm like, I'm telling you, this guy has a real shot to be the starter. You could tell the way they were talking. They were talking about him last spring the same way they talked about Jalen Wright the previous offseason. And sure enough, boom, starter, led Tennessee in touchdown catches, was Tennessee's best tight end. Holden Stays is now gone. He's off to Indiana. And it's Ethan Davis and Miles Kipsum as Tennessee's top 2 tight ends heading into 2025.
Austin Price, VolQuest, joining us this morning on RKW. So along those lines, Austin, does that in any way, with maybe more inexperience at the wide receiver position, like a depth, does that put more pressure on Nico Iamaleava early on, even starting in spring, to really have to try to elevate these guys?
Yeah, absolutely. Nico's got to take a big step. I've got kind of a story coming out. It's kind of like 5 returning guys who need a big spring to help Tennessee have a big fall. And number 1's Nico, because it's a quarterback-driven game. He has to take a big step this spring. He has to be someone who is a game changer, right? Like, did he lose Tennessee in games last year? No. Did he win them a bunch of games with individual play? I would tell you no. And so, he was really good for a redshirt freshman quarterback. Go look at the stats compared to all the other kids in his class or the class after him. He was really good a year ago. But he didn't go out and just dominate games and change the way the game, played. And I think that's where he has to take a big step this year is, he needs to be able to be a game changer, somebody who puts Tennessee on his back and leads them and propels them when maybe things aren't going perfect.
Austin, there's been some questions here today on the show when we were bringing up the combine about James Pierce Jr. and obviously saw him run a great 40, but there have been outlets that are saying, well, he could fall down to even maybe the 3rd round. Is there anything we're not catching here, Austin, on maybe why teams are not so high on him? Because he seems like the physical attributes are all there.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is posturing. I think some teams want James Pierce to fall. I don't think if he falls into the third round, then, somebody is going to look like a fool, because James Pierce has got, limitless talent. Now, was James Pierce, a chore sometimes? Sure. I mean, but they all are. I mean, like all these kids, none of these kids are perfect. I thought James grew a lot. He matured a lot. James is much smarter than people realize. And, again, like when you go back, I mean, Juwan Jennings was a handful when he was here, and he's doing just fine.
Yeah.
So, same thing with Sean Ellis back in the 90s or Raynoch Thompson. I mean, like James Pierce, whoever drafts him is going to get a steal, especially if they get him late in round 1, early in round 2. Like if he falls to the third round, then that would be a travesty. And again, whoever's going to get him is going to get a angry, motivated kid. Like James Pierce is a really good football player. He, obviously we're all still. I'm 41. I'm still maturing. I can still be a kid at times. So he's still maturing. But, James Pierce, again, I think grew a lot during his time here.
Austin Price of VolQuest on 3, our guest. Austin, switching gears to the hardwood, how happy are people around the program for Jemai Mashack in the moment that he had on Saturday, Austin? It just feels like nobody embodies that Tennessee basketball culture more than he does.
Yeah, I mean, he does a fantastic job of just being whatever they need him to be. If he needs to be a scorer, he can be a scorer. Go back 2 years ago. I mean, he led him to the Sweet 16. He was the point guard on that team when Zakai went down.
Right.
And everybody left him for dead. He's basically like, oh, you need me to guard the number 4. Okay, I'll guard the power forward. Oh, you need me to play point guard. I'll do it. He just does whatever the team needs him to do. And, I mean, you look at that last 30 seconds between, forcing the foul call, getting to the line, 2 perfect free throws that didn't even touch the rim. Getting the jump ball, helping force the 5-second call, and then, of course, being able to drain a 30-footer. And then I thought the best part of all of it was, the reaction of him just kind of looking back, staring as everybody else went euphoric outside of Barnes and Ziegler, who I think thought they were going to overtime. It was like he had made a layup, not a 30-footer. His reaction was fantastic, and just a genuinely good kid, man, and has basically done whatever Rick Barnes wanted him to do for 4 years.
Austin, and looking at the reactions from those from that shot and the multiple angles you got it from, will UT be fined $500,000 for Josh Dobbs running on the court the way he did? Because where did he come from, Austin? And I'm surprised it wasn't a court storming to begin with.
Yeah, I think they did a good job of holding back the student section. You saw that a week or so ago. I forget what was it. They waited it was at Georgia against Florida. They waited the 90 seconds or whatever. No, I don't think that'd be fine for Josh Dobbs. He can kind of do whatever he wants to do, and I'm sure he's got credentials that say he could be out there. So it's not like he's a normal fan.
He wasn't, man, but it was fascinating. The next thing, man, is going into this March Madness, which Tennessee kicked it off on March 1st, man. What is to you the main point that has to be made when it comes down to this team making a run? Because they definitely got the goods. Should be able to lock up this number 1 seed if they knock off these last 2 opponents. What has to happen in your mind going forward for Rick Barnes?
Well, I think it's all about matchups. It's all about who you get put, in your bracket with. I mean, a year ago, if Tennessee ends up with, I don't know if they beat UConn, but Purdue was a terrible matchup for Tennessee. The other 2 number 1 seeds, Tennessee's going to the Final Four if they end up in there. It's all about who you get, paired up with. Who's your, if Tennessee's a 1, who's your 2? If Tennessee's a 2, who's your 1? Who's your 3? Who's your 4? What kind of matchups do they, present? And then, it comes back down to, making shots. I mean, Tennessee can't have one of those games where they struggle to score. And they've been prone to do that. And when you do have that, then your defense better be elite. So the defense needs to travel, like it normally does. And then, just make shots. Chaz Lanier has to be the Chaz Lanier we've seen in the last few games where he's, been much more of a threat to kind of hit a little bit of a burst. I mean, he started the game the other day with a really quick 7-point stretch. I mean, he made shots. Zakai Ziegler can't have 2 silly fouls that puts him on the bench for the whole first half. And, I mean, how many times? I mean, the last 2 or 3 weeks, how many times has he kind of went nothing in the first half and then exploded for like 15 to 20 in the second? I mean, like it's happened multiple times, and so Tennessee's got to avoid those things when you get to the tournament because you're not in Food City Center, and you're not playing a familiar foe in the SEC. You're going to be playing somebody that you've not seen, which can be good, can also be bad. So, I think Tennessee's a team that has the makeup to make it to the Final Four. Would be the first time in school history. But again, I think it all still boils back down to matchups.
Just real quick too, this Astros Foundation College Classic that the baseballs played in this past weekend. We just conditioned to expect this team to just keep winning like this, Austin, or how do you see the outlook for this group moving forward too?
Yeah, they're certainly on autopilot, Ramon. I mean, like it's pretty remarkable how well they've gelled together. As a hitting team, as a pitching team. I mean, Tennessee had 12 strikeouts on Sunday against Arizona. That was a bullpen game where they pitched 5 pitchers or whatever it was. I mean, you get 12 strikeouts out of a bullpen outing. It's pretty remarkable. It's one thing to put Liam Doyle out there and he does most of the work, and then you might add a few more from somebody in the pen, and you end up with 12 or 13 strikeouts. When you're literally like pitching 1 to 2 innings apiece, I think Snead pitched maybe 3 Sunday. To get 12 strikeouts is pretty good from a pitching staff that again has some new arms in it. I just continue to be impressed by everything they're doing, their continuity on their staff, the way that the kids buy in, whether it's from the high school ranks and developed, the JUCO ranks, or transfer portal. They do a great job. Fisher, obviously, Gavin Keeling, SEC Player of the Week, coming in as a transfer and was fantastic. I mean, even when he got out, he was hitting them to the warning track down in Houston. So this is a baseball team that just continues to plod along, and got the first SEC series coming up, not this coming weekend, but next weekend against Florida. That's a series here in Knoxville.
He is Austin Price of VolQuest and On 3, joining us this morning on the show as he does every Tuesday at 8:20. Excellent, Austin. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it, Austin.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Austin Price with us this morning. I have all these stats down just because I'm doing the game tonight for Tennessee baseball. Leading the country in ERA, hits allowed per 9 innings, strikeouts per 9 innings, and walks and hits allowed per 9 innings. And then on offense, they're leading the country in slugging percentage and home runs per game. Decent.
Wow.
Coming up, we thought a team was going to do Hard Knocks this offseason. Turns out, never mind. We'll talk about it next.
It's Ramon Foster for the Wellness Institute of Nashville right now, man. Listen, they have my seal of approval on this deal right now that can change your life. They have the Behind the Lines offers, a $37 consultation that includes a doctor visit, x-rays if you need them, and your first treatment. If you need more in-depth treatment because you are part of the Zone family, yes, they acknowledge that. They will give you 50% off your spinal decompression treatment. Listen to me, Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley just want you to get better, man. I've gone there. I've used it. I've used their spinal decompression machine. Amazing is what I want to let you know. So if you have that thought that you're not sure if it's for you, well, it is. Start your road to a pain-free life. And yes, it is possible by simply calling the Wellness Institute of Nashville at 615-246-5009 or go to painisbad.com.
RKW on 104.5 The Zone is brewed by Scooters Coffee with locations in Brentwood, Goodlettsville, Mount Juliet, Smyrna, and White House. Amazing people, amazing drinks, amazingly fast. 615-737-1045. Well, we thought that we were going to get to watch Bill Belichick and North Carolina on the off-season version of HBO's Hard Knocks. Well, never mind. They have backed out. CBS Sports' Jonathan Jones with the report saying NFL Films had discussions with Coach Belichick and UNC about appearing on Hard Knocks, but could not reach an agreement. There is still desire within the UNC program to do some sort of all-access behind-the-scenes series, but one source questioned why UNC wouldn't want the prestige and reach of HBO. They wanted more editorial control.
Mm-hmm.
Classic.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of weird that this was out there, that they were doing it. Okay, if they were still working on negotiations, why was it put out that this was a deal? Look, I would have been interested in it just because it is a different type of situation now in college football where they're kind of setting what could be the future of a lot of these programs with the general manager, being a part of this now. That would be interesting to go behind the scenes to see Michael Lombardi and what his role is in it. And Bill Belichick and his 12-year-old girlfriend. No, I'm just joking. But anyway.
At least make her 18, so we might be accusing him of some.
I was really going in with the dagger on him.
The FBI would be at his door. He would hard.
Knock, knock, knock. Hello.
Not appropriate.
Hard Knocks, the show be the last.
Okay.
It'd be a knock on the door from the FBI is what it would be.
It'd be one hard knock.
But I'm not overly surprised. You said that, control in terms of what HBO really wanted to get in on. I'm sure that was not a thing, especially in the first year of this program doing this, that was probably okay.
Yeah, I thought that this was Bill Belichick trying to show his youthfulness, trying to show that he's changed as a coach, legitimately. Like, guys that talked around the league, you felt like the Patriots was, respectfully going into like boot camp every single day with how he operated. And I figured this would be a part of him being able to show, look, I'm here for the youth. I'm here to build this thing up and watch how I do it. And what better year to do it to it in year one where he really breaks them down. Again, Bill Belichick is doing all these smiles and making all these public appearances right now. That ain't the coach. Mm-hmm. The coach behind closed doors, from my understanding, is very Iron Fist-like. And that's what he probably wants control over.
For sure.
That matters to a guy like him. And most coaches in general are very egotistical, okay? Very high, strong egos. And I'm sure those optics wouldn't have been good, especially when dealing with now people's kids, amateur kids. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I get it. Editorial control.
What do you think about the NFL types who are now becoming college football general managers? Do you think that's going to work?
Do I think it's going to work?
People like Michael Lombardi and Jim Nagy?
I think it's going to push the NCAA into a world that they don't know what they're getting into more than anything. You're going to have these guys be like Sankey, have a lot of power, a lot of flex, more business models as it pertains to the sports and how they negotiate moving forward and stuff like that. I think you'll see more of an impression being put on the student athletes more than anything. That's where I see the power control going to.
I think it's just a matter of time before we have like salary caps and all this stuff. I just think that this is going in such a different direction that some of these schools are just preparing for it already. And to have a general manager that's maybe more dealing with the money side of things and the NIL, I think it's almost necessary moving forward. I think more schools will probably follow those models because it is still the Wild West. But I think at some point, you're going to have somebody within the college, ranks that's more so dealing with the money.
Yeah. It's just interesting. So. I think in terms of transfer portal, I think it works. Having someone who can evaluate college players in the background while you're playing, I think is meaningful. But in terms of recruiting high schoolers, I just don't know how much overlap there is. Like, it is so different watching even, let's say, Wofford, go Terriers, has a good corner. Like, I, as an NFL personnel person, can look at his tape and say, I can work with that in the NFL. That's a lot different than watching a 17-year-old from McDonough, Georgia, who is eating Wheaties and ice cream for 50% of his meals, hasn't gotten in a weight program yet, is taking pre-calculus, and is playing against guys who are half of his size. Like, relationships matter in terms of high school coaching to where, like, I don't know, just because I can break down an NFL prospect's film doesn't mean that I'm qualified to go talk to a high school football head coach in Metairie, Louisiana, or in, Palm Beach, or in Ripley, Tennessee. Like, there is value in understanding the relationship piece of, like, I can look a high school head coach in the eye, and he and I have a good enough rapport that he's going to tell me whether or not his left tackle is ready for SEC football or needs to go JUCO first before he does.
Yep.
That's what I think is interesting about it.
I just wonder, though, if the general manager, like, that's not as much as their role, right? Like, they're still going to have, and Bill Belichick's different, though. He's not the high school recruiting type. I mean, he's been in the NFL his whole career for the most part. So in other situations, though, like Nagy over at Oklahoma, I wonder how much GMs will have part in the actual high school recruiting.
I think the smart ones will have people in place that are going to do that for them.
Me too.
I agree.
Me too.
Like, that's what I think. Like, looking at Vanderbilt, looking locally, like Barton Simmons being the GM of that program, that's a guy who has been in high school recruiting for years. That is a very smart way for Vanderbilt to major in evaluating diamonds in the rough at the high school level, because you get someone who knows high school recruiting and knows high school coaches that can be honest with you.
It's college GMs basically management of agents at this point, though, too.
I think a lot of them, that's what it's going to become.
Yeah.
And like, to me, if you have a personnel staff that can be watching college film on guys you think could enter the portal while you're still playing before the portal's open, that way, if you're about to play Ohio State, you have a leg up. You already know who you want in the portal because you have a staff that's been scouting that for weeks.
Me personally, with kids that I hope to be recruited, I don't want to talk to the GM.
Right.
Let me talk to the coach.
Sure.
And that's that is also the difference maker. So effectiveness as far as prospects, evaluation, but I don't want to see the GM coming to my house.
Right. Now, the GM might step in when money starts to be talked about, right? And I get
that's what I'm saying. The management of agents is where it is. And also, too, hey, coach, you might want to cut this player. But they can cut themselves by hopping into the portal anytime they want to.
615-737-1045, open for your reaction. Got a lot of open lines as we begin the fourth and final hour. We'll reset the headlines of the morning. Sam Darnold and T. Higgins franchise tag decisions, and much more coming up. 9:01 from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Will Bowling. It is franchise tag deadline day in the NFL, and Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero of NFL Network are reporting that the Minnesota Vikings are not expected to franchise tag quarterback Sam Darnold by today's deadline. The franchise tag for quarterbacks is just a hair over $40 million for the non-exclusive tender. Meanwhile, the Bengals, they are franchise tagging wide receiver T. Higgins for a second consecutive season. If he signs the tag and ends up playing on it, he would make a guaranteed $26.2 million for 2025. That's 120% of the $20.6 million he made on last season's tag. Tonight on ice, the Nashville Predators finish a 3-game Northeast road swing with a matchup against the Boston Bruins. The Preds have lost the first 2 games of the trip, allowing 11 total goals over the weekend to the New York Islanders and New York Rangers. And tonight on the hardwood of the SEC, Arkansas visits Vanderbilt at Memorial Gym at 8 o'clock. ESPN.com yesterday gave the Commodores a 90% chance to make the NCAA tournament after their weekend win over Missouri. Meanwhile, the Razorbacks, they just have a 33% chance. So a big one for them tonight after their Saturday loss at South Carolina when they only mustered 14 points in the first half of that game. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone. Hour number 4 of RKW, brewed by Scooters Coffee on 104.5 The Zone. Middle Tennessee locations in Brentwood, Goodlettsville, Mount Juliet, Smyrna, and White House. At Scooters Coffee, amazing people, amazing drinks, amazingly fast. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll catch up with SEC Network's Richard Hendrix, talking some SEC hoops. Tennessee, Alabama reaction, and looking ahead to the midweek games where his alma mater, Alabama, has Florida and Auburn to finish their regular season. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, and Will Bowling. Justin Hawkins is our producer as we begin the 4th hour with a franchise tag deadline day, guys. No surprise on either front that Sam Darnold is not being tagged by the Vikings and that T. Higgins is being tagged by the Bengals.
Yeah. I was not shocked. Well, Sam Darnold a little bit because you felt like they had an option, but you got Sam Darnold at home. His name is J.J. McCarthy. So having the option frees him up a little bit more than anything. If Sam goes and hit the market and his market's not what he wants it to be, he know he's got a home in Minnesota. And there's just that on that side too. And it matters the play callers that you have for you. And it matters that level of comfortability knowing that you got Justin friggin' Jefferson as your wide receiver one. That pays dividends right there more times than not. The T. Higgins one, Hella, what you think about this?
I feel bad for T. Higgins. I feel bad for anybody who plays for the Cincinnati Bengals, I feel like, because this is the second time he's going to be franchise tagged, excuse me.
With the hopes.
And with the hopes, right? Yeah. And I get it. It's hard to keep all that talent in one place, but the Cincinnati Bengals, we've mentioned it several times on the show, they're not known for paying their guys. And they also are known for waiting, and we still don't see Jamar Chase with the deal yet, Trey Hendrickson with the deal yet, which, by the way, their defense needs Trey Hendrickson as much as they can get because they were cheeks, except for him last year. But I do, in a way, it's a weird situation. Like, if you're the player and you're being franchise tagged for the second straight time, I kind of have a little bit of, like, begrudginess against the Bengals. But again, it's a game. You got to go out there and play it.
Yeah, you do.
It's the Cincinnati way.
I know.
It is.
It sucks.
This model in general, I'm going through the roster. I mean, just team lists and trying to figure out what franchise has this 1-1A that Cincinnati's trying to create, other than maybe Philly. And then Devontae,
AJ Brown, and Devontae Smith.
That's it across the league, right? Seattle.
In terms of best 1-2 punches at wide receiver.
Punches at wide receiver.
When he's healthy, Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs this year could have been that, but Stephon Diggs tore his ACL.
We never got a chance to see it.
Yeah.
So, like, Cincy, even trying to make the attempt is
Maybe
almost
Seattle.
like they're hustling backwards at that sense. Seattle, but who's their wide receiver too? You got DK
Lockett.
and Lockett.
Smith and Jigba. Yeah.
But there's
Smith
a
and Jigba.
true delegation
I wouldn't
of
put it at that same level.
DK and Lockett. Lockett
Right.
is a tier or two below DK.
What about the other one? Would have been Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel just got traded.
Yep.
He did get
Which proves
traded.
your point.
Yeah, it can't exist really like that. I heard, I think it was Chris Canty speaking about it this morning. And he was just like, this is impossible to do. To keep all of these weapons that Cincinnati's trying to, or at least make a deal.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's impossible. You've got to be willing to pay a lot of money in a signing bonus and just cash up front.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be willing to take the risk that the dead cap hits on the back end of it and the void years you've got to put in order to be aggressive with the salary cap now. If those guys get hurt or if they just fall off a cliff and they just aren't good anymore, then you're kind of in the situation the Saints are in right now.
And then it's the payoff. Like the payoff of making this deal be okay as a Super Bowl. Cincinnati had been close since year 2 of Joe Burrow at this
really
point
close
too.
too.
And here's the other part of it. Like we've seen this story written time. San Francisco's been attempting it for years. We hadn't really acknowledged it, but they've gone after heavyweight free agents and have those types of players. Like it doesn't work as often as you think it should.
I'd say the best 1-2 punch is probably Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp.
Right, and that's gone. Because Cooper is probably not there.
Yeah.
Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson on a
Oh,
rookie
yeah,
deal.
that could be something.
Yeah.
if-
But
like,
on a
more
rookie
so.
deal, though, they hadn't gotten to the money yet.
Well, that's what Philadelphia is so good. That's why Philadelphia just continues to be in the mix, right? Because they take care of business early enough and they don't wait. I feel like Cincinnati just like they wait and then everything is kind of set to a certain level in terms of the market. And then they're having to kind of play catch up.
You know, another thing that Philly's doing that I am suggesting that the
Releasing
Titans do? Well, that's a part of it. What they are doing is pouring into one side of the ball heavy. That one side of the ball is offense. Everybody's paid over there. The defense is young and very talented.
They're paying offensive players. They're drafting defensive players.
Yes, sir.
And they're just getting rid of James Bradbury as
I just
of
saw
5
that.
minutes ago as well.
They did?
another
That was another
quarterback.
release.
James Bradbury and Darius Slay. But when you get dudes like Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean in the last draft, like you can afford to do
Exactly.
that. That is the Patriots method. I'm going to release you because I can draft someone to be just as good as you for half the money. It's the method the Titans tried once they had to pay a running back and a quarterback, and they failed.
Mm-hmm.
And AJ, yeah.
That's what I'm
They
saying.
try- oh, yeah.
Well, they hadn't paid. They never paid AJ.
They tried.
The Titans were paying a quarterback and a running back, so they had to sacrifice other things, and that's how they decided to try to do it.
Yeah.
615-737-1045. So yesterday, Kayla tweeted something about Dan Orlovsky wants the Titans to sign or to draft Cam Ward. Mentioned agreed. And RJ on Twitter responded and said, Ramon and Kayla are the only ones who are right on the quarterback discussion. Will needs help. He's not keeping it real. So I responded. I said, why exactly? How am I not keeping it real? RJ said he would call in. Well, I've then now had to go find RJ on Twitter this morning. I tweeted at him and said, well, we're waiting. So I guess that pushed him enough to call in. So RJ is here to tell me why I'm wrong. What's up, RJ? Good morning.
RJ?
What's going on? What's going on? Yeah, I'm glad to be on here. Hey, I got to say, a fan of the show. I pretty much listen every day. I agree with Kayla. I somewhat agree with Ramon because he's talking about trading back. But you, Will Bowling, man, I'm going to need you to work on your quarterback evaluation.
So,
man. And both of these quarterbacks are good, man.
What is my take then? Like, because Ramon and I have the same take about trading back. So how is mine different from his?
It's more so why you're trading back. Ramon's more so let's trade back because we got a lot wrong with the team. You saying trade back because the quarterbacks aren't that good, and I think I disagree with you.
Okay. Well, how am I not keeping it real?
The quarterbacks aren't bad. That's
Okay. Well, but that's a matter of opinion, though. I can keep it real and just disagree with you, right?
So what stat makes them a bad quarterback?
Well, people a lot smarter than me, like Matt Miller, who say that Cam Ward is the 18th best quarterback of all those who have been drafted since 2020.
And you believe that?
Yeah, I like Matt Miller. I like his analysis. I think it's
so
legit.
You believe Justin Fields is a better quarterback than Cam Ward? Because that's who we had over Cam Ward.
Yeah.
Coming out.
Yeah.
So you don't think if you put Cam Ward on Ohio State right now, he wouldn't have took them to the national championship and probably went undefeated?
Well, but that's not fair because Will Howard took them to the national championship, and he's not a number one pick. Like
He
that's
didn't go
apples and
undefeated,
oranges.
though. That's the thing. He didn't go undefeated. He lost games.
Okay, well, even if he'd gone undefeated, like that still doesn't make someone a number one prospect.
I like this exercise.
That's the thing. You can disagree with me, but
I like
like to
this
say I'm not
I'm just
keeping
saying,
it real.
I mean, the man
that
had the. In my opinion, like you look at Cam Ward, I got the stats. The man had the number one PFF ranking. He had the number one quarter QBR, and he had plenty of yards and touchdowns, and was the front runner for the Heisman for pretty much 10 weeks until the defense pretty much finally lost him a game, and they took him off.
Yeah,
so how is that not good to see?
He also held his team together in moments. That defense was cheeks for Miami last year. I know there was games that he, obviously was a part of losses, but I think he kept him in more games than people want to give him credit for.
You can be good. I don't think he is a can't miss number one overall pick. That to me, and that's all I've said. Like I would rather trade back and take someone I know is going to be good more likely than any other prospect than Abdul Carter. That's why I want to trade back.
My thing is, though, I feel like we draft Abdul Carter. I think we're on a one-way trip to mediocrity like we've been in with this cycle of just bridge quarterbacks and good defenses and get put out the first round of the playoffs. I think it's time for this city to finally get a quarterback they can get behind that is pretty dynamic like Cam Ward or so you look at the top quarterbacks in the league, they're all dynamic. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. You telling me if you watch the best highlights of Cam Ward, he don't make those type of plays?
He makes some good ones. Thank you, RJ. We got to move on because we're out of time. But the challenge you take in that is you can also get Will Levis when you go for the dynamic playmaker and a guy that just throws it to the other team.
Will Levis just didn't play enough football either.
Yep. Well, anyway, I hope I'm keeping it real enough.
No, I mean, he had a decent conversation with you.
Yeah, right. My issue is like, you can disagree with me, but like that, I'm also entitled to an opinion.
Well, sure.
Like it's not that deep. Anyway, it's interesting. Coming up next, Richard Hendrix, SEC Network. We'll talk SEC hoops after this.
If you're often feeling tired, lacking motivation and drive, or gaining weight or noticing a loss of muscle mass, these could all be signs of low testosterone. Don't wait. Find out. At Low T Center, they make it easy to get your levels checked. It's just a simple test, and with their on-site lab, you'll get results back right there. Low T Center is not a typical doctor's office either. Their physicians specialize in treating low T with testosterone replacement therapy, or TRT, for each patient. The experts at Low T Center have over a decade of experience helping patients, and super important here, the personal treatment plans are optimized for each patient. These aren't just basic standard treatments. No, absolutely not. And for their current patients, too, Low T Center offers you a $150 referral credit for each new patient that you refer. And you can also get your health evaluated with prescription GLP-1 weight loss medication. So get back to your best. Go to lowtcenter.com to book your appointment today. That's lowtcenter.com. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare.
RKW is brewed by Scooters Coffee on 104.5 The Zone. Amazing people, amazing drinks, amazingly fast. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, and Will Bowling joined this morning by former Alabama basketball star and now SEC Network analyst Richard Hendrix, talking some SEC hoops on this final week of the regular season. Richard, what's up, man? How are you?
Doing great, guys. Thank y'all for having me.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Hey, did we watch the best game of the season in college basketball over the weekend? Just how impressed were you by the level we saw in Knoxville between Tennessee and Alabama?
Well, it depends on who you're going for. I think you guys might have watched the best game in college basketball.
Fair
but
enough.
I tell you, you go a little further south, and that was just a major bummer. I mean, listen, I'm a ball fan. So, listen, when I look at all of the games, I love to watch a good basketball game. And obviously, being an Alabama guy, you hate that those last 30 seconds of a game where you can really think that you're going to get a huge win on the road in a place where it's been tough for us to win in the last few times, in a team that's playing really good basketball, and you just want to stay in the mix to get an SEC championship. To lose in that fashion was a tough one. But at the same time, if you're just watching the game, that was phenomenal. I mean, you're talking about two really good teams, a tough, hard-fought game that comes down to the end, and Tennessee makes all of the plays, and Jamal Mashak hitting that shot. I mean, this is a guy that a lot of teams don't even guard. Right. I mean, they don't respect his ability to shoot it from the outside. And he makes the play by being the hustle man that he is, gets in there and draws the foul on the offensive rebound, makes the 2 free throws, and then the inbounds play where you think it's going to go into overtime. It almost reminds me of like that Fresh Prince episode when, Carlton Banks took the ball from Will and shot it and nobody wanted it, but this time he makes it, And Mashak, I mean, he just cans it, and you look over there and you see Rick Barnes and Zakai Ziegler over there calling for a timeout, and you don't even know that he's won the biggest game maybe in his career. So you got to be happy for that kid. I mean, that was a great moment. He's been a guy that, like I said, they don't respect his ability to score, but you see why he's so valuable to that team, and that's got to be pretty cool to watch.
Richard Hendrix of SEC Network with us. I love that image of the ball in the air. But it actually goes in.
That was perfectly
the perfect comparison. Richard, from the Alabama perspective, it is interesting just how much better they've gotten defensively. With the time you spent around that program and watching them, just how have they raised their level on the defensive end? Because you know as well as anyone, as good as they are on offense, they don't have to be Tennessee level on defense to win a national title, but they've still got to be better than maybe they were early in the season.
Yeah, and they've picked it up a notch because that was an area that Alabama and Nate Oates really wanted to shore up this offseason. Last year, they didn't have players in the positions that they needed. They played Grant Nelson at the 5, and this year they were able to get Clifford Amore into it to have the positional size that they needed at every single level. And they even go too deep. So this is a team that if you're an Alabama fan or you're watching, there have been high expectations. You expected to win the SEC. You don't do that, and obviously your rival Auburn is the one to get it done. But they have so much talent that if you talk about the SEC tournament coming up and the NCAA tournament, they get the right draw, and it's set up for them to play outside of maybe 5 teams, Tennessee, Auburn, Houston, teams that can grind you out and slow down the tempo with veteran point guards who can control the game and play tough defense. If they get the right draw, I mean, it's a team that can easily win the national championship. They're just that good, but they have to have a much better level of consistency of playing defense for 40 minutes. When you play at the pace that they do, you get so many possessions throughout the game, and that's difficult for teams to keep that detail to guard all game long, and that's where they allow teams to get back in it. But if they can get focused, they're a dangerous team.
Richard Hendrix of the SEC Network and Alabama alum is joining us this morning. Rich, when you look at this March Madness that we're about to go through, man, and Greg Sankey wanting a national championship come out of the SEC, like other conferences has pure basketball just history, right? UConn and Dan Hurley, he's out here bragging about how he the best coach in all of college basketball. When you look in the SEC, they got just as many. So I got to ask you, going into this tournament, the NCAA tournament, what is the SEC's calling card?
I mean, listen, I think this, and the narrative has been pushed all year long that this is the best season and the best that the SEC has ever been. And I do think that they are deep as far as the number of teams that are quality. But as a guy that played in a time period where The SEC, when I was a freshman, we had, I think it was 6 teams go to the NCAA tournament. We all almost won on the first day. Florida wins back-to-back national championships. LSU is in the Final Four. Tennessee at that time was the number 1 team in the country between 05 and 08 and playing really good basketball. It's hard for me to look at it, and people don't give SEC basketball the respect that it deserves historically. I think when you live in the shadows of football, and you talk about football constantly, it's a year-round thing, and you have the best conference with the best players, and they have so much history on the gridiron, it doesn't give the respect that the conference deserves in basketball. But with that being said, this year, everyone's been talking about how good we are, how good they've been for so long. To me, the only thing that matters is, do we have a team that's going to get it done at the end of the season, that's going to be at the top of the totem pole? It's been since 2012 when Kentucky was able to win it. And if you have a field of so many strong teams, the SEC really needs someone to step up and get it done.
And so you bring those teams up and you almost forget the SEC isn't like obsolete from winning it. Like, you do have Florida, you do have Kentucky, you do have Auburn making it to the Final Four and just beating the, most of the teams in the SEC, ACC challenge. I want to go to the ACC real quick. We were having a conversation earlier. I just want your opinion as a basketball player, man, with the potential that the ACC could be dissolved at some point, maybe by 2030. As far as the draws from the Big Ten and the SEC, I just want to know, as far as the way you view this, how would you take the addition of North Carolina and Miami coming to the SEC, or should it already be done?
Well, I would say if I was one trying to make an addition, even though I do think the SEC is strong with the 16 that they have right now, North Carolina would be the team that I would definitely consider, because that's going to elevate your basketball profile to a whole nother level. Obviously, now they got Bill Belichick at the helm for football, so you're going to have a team that's going to have some interest in. And just geographically, I mean, that's a team that's obviously kind of in the South. It's not like the other ACC teams that are higher up on the coastline, that they could definitely see as a regional team that makes sense. Miami, you have the football history. Basketball, they went to a Final Four in recent years, but they're struggling this year. But it's just the way that the school kind of looks. I came down to making a decision between Alabama and North Carolina, and I decided to stay home. But the way that the school just kind of looks, it kind of fits the mold of what the other SEC schools would be. But that would be cool to see. But North Carolina is a team that's been struggling on the basketball side, and they have struggled to find their way in this new transfer portal NIL era where your traditions – and all of the things in the past are no longer what entice players to come and be a part of the league. They're going to have to make some changes to try to get that program back up to the level that fan base expects. And that's the challenge that a lot of those traditional blue blood schools, as you've been able to see this season, have dealt with.
Richard Hendrix of the SEC Network joining us this morning on RKW. We're talking a little hoops. On the note of the transfer portal, Richard, and it's not just an exact science in terms of how you're putting together teams when you are picking out of the transfer portal. And I know where I'm from, Gonzaga is a team that has struggled a bit this year when it comes to finding.
Rich.
That's Ron Slay over there.
Slay's made his way in the building.
Hey, he knows who I am.
He said he
ain't hard to find.
He said he ain't hard to find.
I ain't hard to find. He knows who I am.
Do you want to take over? Or you want me to finish?
That's my dog. I'm sorry, KK. Go ahead. That boy was preaching. Go ahead, KK.
Let you have the table.
Man, I get on the back end on this one. That boy.
Is there like a science to getting the right transfer players, or how do you is there a way to know if they're going to work together? Because it just seems like chemistry is such a big part of that when you're bringing in transfer players.
Oh, you're spot on, and it's all about embracing the situation that you're going to have turnover quickly. The coaches that hold on to like, hey, I don't have enough time, I need to put my culture in, and then it takes time to learn. No, you have to embrace like, hey, this is like professional basketball overseas. Mm-hmm. And like, you have to understand that your team is going to change every single year. And I even predict if they keep it the way it's going, I wouldn't be surprised you had mid-season acquisitions and things change in this college basketball stuff. But listen, You have to embrace that you're going to have a new team, and you got to go ahead and get the people that match your system in the offseason and just judge it by watching the film. You're not going out to high schools and recruiting. You're not going on the road and looking at AAU tournaments. You're looking at players that are on other teams right now that can fit what you do. So you have to have a brand and a style. We talk a little bit about teams in the SEC. Nate Oates, he knows how he wants to play. Rick Barnes knows how he wants to play. He's looking for strong, big-body defenders. Nate Oates looking for shooters on the perimeter that can handle the ball in bunches. He's looking for bigs that can finish above the rim. And Mark Byington, if it wasn't for Bruce Pearl and what he's doing in the SEC, I think would be the SEC Coach of the Year. You're looking for players that are going to fit into your system and have a certain character to get it done immediately. So you have to have an eye for it. There's a few guys out there that really know how to do it, but more than anything, you have to have the mentality to embrace that I'm going to have a kid for a short amount of time, and there's no excuses, and I got to get it done and get the most out of him for him immediately.
Slay Dog?
Hey, Rich.
Man, my boy going
Rich,
off.
I just grabbed a hat. It's a representation of the offering play because Ron Slay about to fill it up.
No, man, I'm just saying.
Hey, is it an Alabama hat that you're taking that off?
No, it's a Davy Crockett hat.
Davy Crockett coonskin hat. You don't want this one either, Rich.
Hey, man, I'm adding to what Rich says, man. And y'all, I wish a lot of people, like I get the opportunity to, and I'm always grateful for this, to listen to Savage and how him and the lineman used to talk. You know what I mean? Him around his peers and that conversation and just be a fly on the wall. What Richard just gave you guys was us. That was you guys being a fly on the wall and having a true basketball conversation. When you talk about the SEC and everybody's so enamored of how it is right now, yes, 2 teams were added. But like I went on, what was it? The show with Jim Dunaway and them.
Next round?
Next round. Yeah. I went on the next round, and they asked the same thing, like, is this the greatest? I said, man, that's hard for me to say, man. Yes, absolutely, top to bottom. The talent level, man, 1 through 9, 1 through 10 is exceptional, and the coaching is exceptional. But when you talk about, man, just dog days, get after it, when you go into these other environments, dog, we played in an era where from 98 to 2005, 2006, you better bring your hard hat. LSU, South Carolina, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Kentucky. Like, these are the people with Arkansas. You don't even have to mention. Tennessee. Like, dude, I'm telling y'all, man. And when you look at it and you look how people were being drafted, like, we had pros every single night on a down year. It was pros running around. So I'm with Rich, man, dude. Hey, golly, boy, you made me get out the truck on that one, Rich. I ain't playing.
You got to listen, because I want the people who watch the game. This is the main thing that I say all the time as an analyst. I want to make sure that the viewer sees the game through the lens of a person who's been there on all levels, a guy who's been a starter, who's been one of the best bigs in the league, who got drafted to the NBA, who played professionally for almost 15 years, who's been cut, who's in every situation. I've been on the bench. I've been a 6-man. I've been an MVP in leagues. I know what it's about in every single situation. And you have to learn how to view it as such. You look at the game now, and everybody talks about it. It's no disrespect. This is a great player. Everybody talks about Janai Broom's dominance. I think he is, obviously, I think he's the SEC Player of the Year. He probably will be the National Player of the Year. But if you go back, when everyone that always has this, recency bias, and you forget what's happened in previous generations, he act like the style of play that he plays is like a unicorn. If you go back into the SEC 20 years ago, every team had 1 or 2 guys who could play with the back to their basket and could command a double team. So you look at myself at Alabama, Erwin Dudley, Jamario Davison, Chuck Davis, myself. We're on the team around the same time. You look at your teams at Tennessee, yourself, Marcus Hayslip, Vincent Yarbrough. These are guys who are all 6'9", 6'10", and it's 6 bigs in the paint. Big Baby, Tyrus Thomas, Brandon Bass, all on the same team. Joakim Noah, Al Horford, who are still playing today. So when you look at it and you say, man, like, this is something we've never seen, I think the credit goes to the SEC Network and ESPN and the exposure that you have now seen with basketball in this southern region. It's not something about, like, this is something we've never seen. I think we've seen it before. I mean, Shaq played in this league. I mean, my goodness.
With Stanley Roberts next door.
Yeah. And Chris, and Mahmoud, Chris Johnson on the team.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So what are we talking about here as far as we've never seen stuff? But at the same time, I appreciate the young guys. I'm going to give them their flowers and what they're doing. But at the same time, it's been 13 years since anyone in the league has got it done. And the SEC's got to finish off the deal, or all this talk in the regular season, I don't know how much it means.
Go the hell off, Rich.
I love it.
All right. Yeah, and I agree with you. I totally agree with you when it comes to the names that this league has produced and the type of competition. And I think, like, for me, too, looking at it, it is more so just overall top to bottom and just the amount of coaches that are great. The amount, it's not necessarily a dog on y'all in the past of what this league was. And I think the point you made, too, about the exposure, I mean, that's the biggest thing. The exposure is now there for everyone to see from the East Coast to the West Coast. So I agree with your point on that. When it comes to Alabama this week, taking on a Florida team that had a little bit of a mishap at Georgia, but righted the ship when they took on Texas A&M in their last game. How do you see this one playing out in a midweek game?
Oh, an elite matchup. I mean, these are two teams that have it all. In Florida, stylistically, is a team that's similar to Auburn. And what I mean by that, they can beat you in multiple ways. They got 3 guards on that team, and Walter Clayton Jr., Will Richard, and Elijah Martin, they can stand toe-to-toe with any guards in the country. They're older, they're mature, and they're physical. These guys have football backgrounds. If you watch them, they're two-way players. They can lock you up on both ends. They can shoot from deep. But then they also have bigs on the inside, a physical presence in Ruben Chinyelu, who's an offensive rebound threat and a defensive stopper. Alex Condon, when healthy, he's been struggling with some issues lately. We get back to his full strength, he can score at will on the low block. And Micah Handlogman, the 7-footer, is back in action, who was injured last year. So you're going to see that team that a lot of people are not talking about in the league, because we're talking about Auburn, we're talking about Alabama, we're talking about Tennessee. Florida is national championship good. Mm-hmm. Now, they're going to go into Tuscaloosa on senior night, and I think these guys are going to be motivated after the results they had on Rocky Top on the last game to be motivated to play good basketball. But this is going to be a game that you're going to have it all. You're going to have elite-level guard play. You're going to have up-and-down pace. And it's going to be a dogfight all the way to the end. So it should be a good one. Not easy for Alabama down the stretch. I just hate that they blew that last game, because I thought they might have a chance to sneak a share of that title in the last game in the jungle. And that's what I wanted to see more than anything.
He is SEC Network's Richard Hendrix. He was so good. He got Ron Slay to make a surprise visit, get out of the truck, and come in here and add to the conversation. Richard, man, we love having you on. I'm sure we'll do it again as March Madness continues, man. Thanks so much.
Call me anytime. Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you,
Richard
man.
Hendrix with us here this morning. What's up, Slay?
What's happening, man?
I was like, wait, did we get the day wrong?
No, I'm telling y'all, man, listen, though, this is the conversation that in our basketball chat, I just text our good friend Alex Renfro, who Belmont legend. Yeah. When you talk about professional playing overseas and out of sight, out of mind, he may be, but boy, that bank account show ain't. I'm telling you right now. But this is the thing, guys that know the game, we always say, and Richard knows this, man, Rich, get them people just like we be talking in the chat. He gave y'all a little bit of that right now. Hey, man, I just text Alex and was like, hey, dog, you going to be proud of Rich. Please go back and listen to this. He did not hold back. Awesome. But that's the thing. He's talking about what we're seeing with Janai Broome. Yes, it's an anomaly because nobody plays like that anymore. Right. Bruce Pearl even went back to that old two-big system. Right. Cardwell and then having Janai Broome in the game at the same time. Janai played the 5 last year. Cardwell was the backup. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. The reason he's talking about Florida, they built like that because they got 2 bigs, 1 6'9", 1 6'11", or 7 foot, and playing high-low. You don't see it anymore. When UConn went on that run, they had 1 big. Every now and then they'll throw a 4-man in with them. You don't see that type of game. But we talking about from our era, dog, the people he was naming on that LSU team, all pros. Always. Richard from Florida that he forgot to name, pro. Like everybody was a pro on our team. We had a lottery pick that couldn't get on the floor. So mind you, when you got 2 bigs, that also has 2 bigs guarding him. That's 4 people right there in the paint. Then you got a guy 6'9", 6'7" on the wing, Vincent Yarbrough, that's going to come down there. His man's coming too. So it's 6 people right there. To play through double teams, we didn't respect you unless you was getting double teamed. Like you, one-on-one.
That's awesome.
Oh, what kind of game? What? I'm not going. Udonis has him. We're going to go on one-on-one.
Right.
We're going to give him 15 then. We're going to give him 15 points. Is that what we do? Like, come on. Hey, man. Boy. Woo, Lord.
It's crazy. We do live in a world where Alabama is playing more back to the basket, inside out basketball than Tennessee is. Or sorry, Auburn. Auburn's playing more back. Alabama's not. Auburn's playing. I misspoke. Auburn's playing more like dump it down and then throw it back out.
That's right.
And Tennessee's the one with Igor Milicic at the 4 who can shoot 3.
Yep, it's crazy.
It's crazy the world works.
That's what a boom boom room started.
Man, that's it.
I love it.
Come on now, like, and that's what I was saying. Like it was about us, but it was everywhere you went.
Yeah,
like everybody you matched up with. You better have some. Mario Austin was at Mississippi State. Like, you know what I mean? Irvin Dunlap was SEC Player of the Year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, what we talking about? Like, dog is, hey, man, look at it. Big Baby Davis. Look at all these bigs. It's been a run on guards getting SEC Player of the Year. Bigs were getting it consistently.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, Kentucky's big.
Dog.
A couple years ago. Golly, what's his name?
From where?
Which one?
The Nigerian.
Big fella from Kentucky.
Yes.
The National Player of the Year.
Yes, the National Player of the Year, the big, the 5.
Golly.
Sheboy.
Oscar Sheboy. Oscar Sheboy. That's 2010.
I was going back farther thinking of
2010.
No,
that's the most recent. That's the most recent National Player of the Year we done had. That's why Dalton should have had it.
Right.
Interesting.
That's why Dalton should have had it. That's why they got to get it right this year and give it to Narborough.
Gift that keeps on giving. Coming up, there is another player in the NFL who has been given permission to seek a trade, and we'll see if we can wrangle Ron Slay into a little bit more SEC basketball talk coming up next. RKW, brewed by Scooters Coffee on 104.5 The Zone, wrapping up the show. Amazing people, amazing drinks, amazingly fast. Appreciate Richard Hendrix joining us. Austin Price joining us earlier as well. You can hit the podcast feed for any of those conversations and any of our draft discussion this morning as well. News of the NFL, Alan Lazard has been given permission to seek a trade.
Mm-hmm.
All Aaron Rodgers' friends, right?
Yeah.
Permission to seek.
They're all going.
They are. Basically, we don't want you, so go ahead and find you somewhere else to go.
Said you can go to a darkness retreat, but you can't go here.
It is just wild to see how much pull he really had, though, when he got there.
Really?
That was wild.
Way too much.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna say
He
way
ain't
too
gonna have
much.
that at his next place. So good luck, A-Rod.
You need to win a championship if you're doing that. All right.
Didn't come close.
Nope.
Not even 2 years in a row.
At least he had that one clip of him with the American flag. It was a cool moment.
It was.
Just,
It was. A lot went wrong after that, though.
We thought it was the Philharmonic. It turned out just to be the sad trombone.
Yeah.
Slay, there is basketball tonight. And, man, Vanderbilt, after their win over Missouri, now has a 90% chance, according to ESPN, to make the NCAA tournament. Arkansas, meanwhile, tonight, feels like if they lose tonight, they might be done unless they win the SEC tournament. Is that a fair assessment at this point?
It's tough, man, just for the simple fact that you're going to get every opportunity. They really have to just trick it off. I would think they would have to lose this one and another one and get bounced in the SEC tournament in order not to be in. Because listening to Joe Lunardi, like he continuously says, we've got to have 68 teams. And you're coming from the strongest league, so if you can just get it together now, they gotta go get this victory against Vanderbilt if they want to even be in contention. But you'll have another opportunity. I don't think it's the end all be all. They can get to what is their
they got Mississippi State
conference
to finish the season.
What's their conference?
Arkansas is 11th the SEC at 6-10.
Yes, and I think seven. I think 7 wins can get you in. Okay. So I think with them in Georgia firmly being planted, get them one more. I think they'll be fine.
I like it.
People want to see Coach Kyle in there too.
True.
That is very true.
Yeah, this is part.
It's the same thing UNC got going for him too, and just like the UNC brand in the first four. Significantly raises the level of interest in the first four. And the committee will always say they don't care about that.
Right.
They care about it.
I mean, why not?
Right. Like Alabama getting in the college football playoff.
Right.
That's
Except
true.
this year. Anyway.
Speaking of brands, Texas, I expected more. Did you? Basketball-wise?
Listen, I always think it's difficult when a freshman is leading your bunch. You know what I'm saying? I think it's the same thing you see with Oklahoma. Like, Trey Johnson is a monster. Jeremiah Fears is really good, too, but he plays, one plays a 2, one plays a point, but they both are the leaders and the alpha of those groups. I want to say I expect more just because I know what Rodney Terry, his foundation is, and expects those guys to be able to deliver. I thought he slipped up at South Carolina, and that carried over to the Arkansas game, and they were losing that one. I do think he's also got the bad side of the whistle a little bit. Like, you look at that Arkansas game and that South Carolina game, the teams going to the free throw line against Coach Terry in Texas is kind of head-scratching, knowing that the difference is so large, and that it shouldn't be like that because they attack the rim the same way. So I'm interested to see going against a Mississippi State team if they can pull it off. It's going to be difficult going in the hump to win one, but Texas, I want to see Texas in.
Okay,
because I want Trey Johnson going to do something special.
He's so good.
He is.
He's so funny.
He deserves to be in the NCAA. I mean, well, I can't say deserves, but I would love to see him in the
Him and Asa Newell both, like with their teams kind of in the same conversation, like at Georgia, freshman leading the way, bubble. And
but see, at least he has Silas Demery that he can lean on, who went through it last year. Blue Kane is a guy, who kind of stepped up. So, I mean, the dog is Asa Newell, no question, but Silas Demery is the guy, and Blue Kane is stirred a drink for them. So,
for sure.
Yeah.
By the way, congrats to Michaela Blake's SEC Freshman of the Year for Vanderbilt. So
huge,
cool
big time for her.
Yep.
Congrats. She can't she stole the scene. She didn't come up on the scene. She stole the scene.
Vanderbilt's going to have to keep her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be shocked listening to her speak if she would have bounced. Hey, they better go get a pocketbook.
Yeah, better make it right for her,
deep
though.
in it,
Give
a lot of zeros.
Dig deep in that, yeah.
You worried about the Lady Vols, speaking of the ladies game?
No, I think they're going to be fine. Going in the SEC tournament, it's kind of like what we're talking about with Barrington, what Richard Hendrix was hitting on. Like, it's styles of play. like Will just mentioned it too. Like it's just a Bruce Pearl like firework style. You know what I mean? You don't truly have a big down there. You know, you're playing for the percentages as far as shooting, and can you get the offensive rebound, give you a better opportunity either for a three or a putback, and you're trying to turn over the other team. So I don't think this is the true essence of who Kim Caldwell's basketball team is. Mm-hmm. But I think this right here is a good stopgap for him.
Mm-hmm.
Love a surprise visit from Ron Slick.
No doubt,
Yeah,
man.
I know. I threw me off
Appreciate
again. I was
you.
like, maybe we're switching back to Tuesdays.
At airport time, I'm board to 10:45. So.
Oh, there we go. Safe flight.
It's 9:54.
Leaving.
Anyway.
Slay, what the?
Yeah, they love me enough.
I'm not
That is
surprised, but
hilarious.
anyway, there's
people
Ron
in
Slay. There is
Wish I
the
could do
show.
that.
We'll kick off your Wednesday morning tomorrow. Ramon Foster send us home so Slay can go to the airport.
Your Twitter fingers and your mic is always on. Peace.
Oh, God, that's good.